And hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome along to the second ever DNF1 live stream watch along. And today we are going to be watching the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix qualifying session. And it's just going to be me today, your host, Adam Burns, also host of the DNF1 podcast. I'm going to be flying solo today. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get a guest on, but that's absolutely fine, I should say. Trying to get my words out properly. I've got you guys for company as well. So certainly looking forward to this qualifying session. Albeit there has been a lot of more important issues that have been going around at the moment in Saudi Arabia, and I don't think we can understate the significance of what has happened. So, you know, for those of you joining us that aren't aware of what's been going on, there has been an attack on a facility over Aramco at their petroleum factory, and unfortunately that has raised a lot of serious health and safety issues that the drivers themselves spent many hours into the early morning talking about and discussing and sort of deliberating amongst themselves whether or not it's safe to go racing this weekend. However, after several chats with circuit organisers, the Saudi Arabian government, F1 and team principals, etc., it's been decided for now that we are going to go racing. Hopefully nothing else happens and that we should be able to have a motor race on. Now, of course, it's very easy as fans to be happy about the fact that we're going to have a race by the looks of it and a qualifying session, etc. However, of course, the most important thing is safety, and I think we can all agree that health and safety of not just the drivers but the teams, the personnel, the media, everybody out there right now is paramount. So whilst personally I'm not exactly happy that, you know, these risks are being taken, I don't fully understand the security measures going on at Saudi Arabia, so I can't exactly pretend as if I do. The only thing I can hope for is that everybody there is safe and okay and well, and that will continue to do so for the rest of the weekend. Now, of course, that all out of the way, hopefully that's the last time we'll have to worry or talk about that. It's getting really, really exciting now. After an incredible first race and an incredible qualifying session that we saw in Bahrain, I'm hoping for more of the same. I'm hoping for plenty of speed out there, plenty of great driving, and on a track like Jeddah at Saudi Arabia, which has produced so much exciting moments already in the one race that we had last season. I'm certainly hoping for more of the same. So guys, in the chat, let me know your predictions for qualifying. I can see a few of you have already got the ball rolling on this one. I see 1892 Reds podcast. Actually, we had them on last week for the Bahrain qualifying session. Top 5, they say Max Verstappen, pole, Charles Leclerc second, Carlos Sainz third, Sergio Perez fourth, Pierre Gasly fifth, Lewis Hamilton out in Q2, they predict. That is, that is going to be a huge shock if it happens. Just looking through, this weekend, the Mercedes-powered teams have not exactly been that strong. They have struggled a little bit. In practice 3, I was watching that a little bit early on. The bottom 6 cars were all Mercedes-powered teams. It was only Lewis Hamilton that was sort of outside of that in P11. So, if the form book continues based on what we've seen in practice, Mercedes and the Mercedes-powered cars could be under a little bit of pressure to get through to Q3. So it could be a very difficult weekend for Mercedes. It looks like it's going to be a strong weekend for the likes of Ferrari and Red Bull. In particular, Red Bull really coming out of the gate in practice 3, albeit they didn't get the fastest time, but Max Verstappen on his last flying lap looked like he was on course to get a huge time on the board to really lay down a marker. And it does seem Max Verstappen at the moment probably is the favourite going into qualifying. Just checking the time now. So we've got 10 minutes to go before qualifying starts. Just a disclaimer for those of you that are joining us. We're going to be watching F1, or I'm going to be watching F1 on the Sky Go broadcast, which is going to be a little bit behind that on TV. So if you are watching this on television and you're also watching the live stream as well, thanks for joining, of course. But please refrain from any spoilers for the benefit of those of you who have tuned in to watch qualifying with me and obviously aren't able to watch it live. So if we could do that, that'd be great. But do get your predictions coming in. I'll be able to read out some of the best ones in the live chat, and of course say hi as well. And if you have any questions you want to ask me about F1, then by all means put it in the chat and I will answer those throughout the live stream as well. Also, just a quick plug before we start on qualifying to, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the DNF1 channel. We do great live streams like this one, and also we have our DNF1 podcast going on as well. It's usually it's a weekly podcast, but sometimes we do 2 episodes a week when the racing is going on. So we're really excited to have many of you already tuned into it this season. We hope to have many of you come aboard as we will be doing the race review for Saudi Arabia in the next few days or so. Of course, that Grand Prix happening tomorrow. And also consider hitting that like button. That would really, really help the channel out a lot if you could do so. The more of you guys like our videos, the more people that will get to see them on the YouTube algorithm, and of course the more of you that will get to listen to the podcast as well. So if you are new and of course joining us for the first time, welcome along and say hi in the chat. And we're about to get started in about 10 minutes time. As you can see, our predictions that we put in are the DNF1 team, myself, my guests on the show regularly, Courtney Pine and Lee Wannington, who join us in DNF1, unable to join me for the live stream. They've got down their predictions, so I'll start with them first. Courtney and myself, we've both gone for Max Verstappen on pole and Charles Leclerc to join him on the front row in second. Lee's gone the other way around. He's expecting Charles Leclerc to get on pole position with Verstappen in second place. I've gone a bit different for third. I've gone for Sergio Perez. Courtney's gone Carlos Sainz. Lee's also gone Carlos Sainz for P3. And then, of course, I've gone Carlos Sainz P4. Courtney's gone Lewis Hamilton and George Russell for 4th and 5th. Lee's gone Perez for 4th, Hamilton for 5th. And I've gone for Valtteri Bottas in P5. Now, that might seem a very, very strange one. And it may turn out to be an absolutely ridiculous prediction. However, I did predict Bottas would have a strong weekend. I think I went as far in the podcast as saying that Bottas may beat George Russell this weekend, providing he doesn't have any problems, and vice versa, of course. So, that would be quite an interesting one if that comes true. But I think, Bottas was very solid in third practice. He was only just under 3/10 off of Charles Leclerc's fastest time in practice 3. And I think the Ferrari power unit's doing wonders for Valtteri Bottas as well, as it is for Kevin Magnussen, who is he was 8th fastest this morning. And just looking down the order for practice 3 as well, a few other surprises. The Alpine guys look very strong. Esteban Ocon looking very strong following up from his strong performance in Bahrain. Fernando Alonso's in the top 10 as well. Pierre Gasly looked very, very good before he had the drivetrain issue at the end of practice 3. So hopefully he'll be okay for that one. And then, of course, we've got Yuki Tsunoda making up the top 10. So it does seem to be quite a good mix in there. And then, of course, you've got Lewis Hamilton, who, for whatever reason, Mercedes are just really struggling at the moment. Very, very strange. I mean, we know that Mercedes have had some performance deficits to the likes of Ferrari and Red Bull, but it seems on this particular circuit, for whatever reason, they just cannot seem to get that performance. Maybe it's a power thing. I know we talked about it on the podcast. Do Mercedes all of a sudden have the third best power unit when last season they looked like they had a rocket ship at the back of, in particular, Lewis Hamilton's car? But at the moment, it does seem like Mercedes have got some questions to answer, and they're going to have to do that quick because they seem to be losing time, and the race pace isn't fantastic either. So it could take a super effort from Sir Lewis Hamilton, the kind that usually he can produce when needed to get Mercedes a good result this weekend. But let's not count them out just yet. Of course, we haven't even got started yet. Practice is practice, so Mercedes could turn up the engine, as they often do, and find that extra performance when needed. But they look like they have some work to do as well. Some other stories in the paddock as well. As we said in the podcast, we expected Sebastian Vettel to not be at the circuit this weekend. That has proven to be the case, unfortunately. Would have been very interesting to see what Sebastian Vettel would have had to have said in the drivers' meeting last night if he was there. Very vocal and spoken young man who often tends to speak the voice of reason and the voice for human rights. So certainly would have been interesting if he was there, but he's not racing. He still is suffering from COVID, wasn't able to travel. So Nico Hülkenberg for Aston Martin has stepped in for the team once again. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. However, he wasn't incredibly quick, only 18th fastest in third practice, still a few tenths off Lance Stroll, so he's got some work to do. And then the other story is McLaren as well. Unfortunately, they still seem to be struggling, so hopefully McLaren can find something, but they, like Mercedes, look like they've got some performance that they're going to need to find. But it is a worry for the Mercedes-powered teams. I mean, I know we keep saying, you can't rule Mercedes out, you can't rule out that power unit, but when all of the Mercedes-powered teams are running at the back of the field, it is a bit of a worry. But hopefully they can pull something out of the bag for qualifying. It's going to be a fun one. As we saw last season, it was an incredibly fun qualifying session. Max Verstappen almost completing what was considered the perfect lap, or at least the perfect two-thirds. I personally have never known a lap to be talked about so much when the driver didn't even finish it. So hopefully we get some good memories today that will allow us to talk about those rather than that. Seeing some more people in the chat. David Doherty. Hello, David. And David, a follower of the DNF1 podcast. Thank you so much, David, for your support. Glad to have you on board. Let me know what your predictions are for qualifying. Guys, if you are new to the live stream, and this is the first time you're on the channel, as I said, please consider liking this video, share it with those of you who know might be interested, and consider subscribing to the channel and let us know in the live chat. Ask us any sort of questions. We can ask those throughout the session as we're reacting to qualifying as well. And let me know what you think is going to happen in qualifying. Best of luck to Ferrari, David writes. And I certainly hope so. A resident Ferrari fan, I've got no shame in admitting that. They are looking very, very strong at the moment. It just seems at the moment that, Max Verstappen does seem to have some pace. Perez was quite close as well on performance, so he's certainly going to be up there, which is good to see, Sergio Perez. And he looked rather good in the Bahrain Grand Prix. It was just very unfortunate to have the reliability issues that he had, similar to his teammate. It looks like Red Bull, hopefully for their sake, have got on top of that. But, in this cost cap era and how important engine reliability is going to be, and etc., amongst other things, it's critical that you sort these issues out as quick as you can. If you are new to qualifying and you're not familiar with the rules, don't worry. I won't go into too much detail, but we're going to have 3 qualifying sessions, Q1, Q2, and Q3, and 18 minutes session for Q1. Then the slowest 5 cars will be eliminated. Then we'll go to Q2. Same rules again, but this time 15 minutes. And then the slowest 5 cars from that session are eliminated. And then we have a pole position shootout in Q3 for the top 10 runners. A new rule to 2022 this season. In Q2, normally the time that you set, or the tyres you set your fastest time on, will be the tyres that you start the race with if you qualify in the top 10. That rule no longer applies. So they will have a free choice of tyre going into the race tomorrow, regardless of what they use, if you make the top 10 in Q2, which is proven to be rather successful. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. Davina James, sorry, I do apologise for pronouncing that wrong, in the chat. Hi, DNF1, I'm watching it in Austria via VPN and don't speak German, so I have you for the commentary. Davina, absolutely loving having you on. Thank you so much, joining us all the way from Austria, and it's absolutely crazy that we do get people joining us from different places around the world. I never thought for a moment that that we'd have followers or people tuning in to watch us from other countries in the world. So we're so grateful to have you on board, Davina. I hope I do it justice. And I imagine, yeah, I mean, I don't speak German either, I'm afraid, so that should be fine. But yeah, absolutely watching. It was quite interesting, actually, on the subject of Germany. That I think it was Sky Germany on the issue with the attacks last night, that I believe most of their media team actually left. I might be wrong. So, Davina, if you are aware of what Sky Germany's position are, in terms of, you know, if you get their coverage, or anyone else that knows about Sky Germany's F1 coverage, if they've actually completely left altogether or not, then do let me know, because that was quite interesting about the reasons. We're not going to get into that too much, because obviously that's quite a sensitive subject, and this is just a watch along for the Formula One. So, as I said already, if you are new and you are watching this along with this, and you just want to join us for the commentary, as Davina is so generously, then of course, you know, please do refrain from spoiling it in the chat. Please do react with us, but we're going to probably be about 20-30 seconds behind live coverage, which I believe is just about to get underway. As you can see, the cars sort of getting themselves ready on here. So yeah, as I said, react with us, and of course I will be commentating through this as best as I can as well. So hopefully this should be fun. But as I said, let me know your predictions, guys. I'm really intrigued to know what you guys think is going to be happening. And obviously I haven't got the English commentary on, because for copyright reasons I wouldn't be able to broadcast that on. And just looking through the garage right now, just hovering over the Ferrari pit garage. And of course it's a night session as well, so the track's going to be a lot cooler than it was in practice free. So a lot of the stuff that I've said already could be completely irrelevant coming into this session as the track cools. The track's going to be a lot faster than it was earlier on. And of course, it will behave a lot differently as well. Will some of the teams still be affected by porpoising? It was interesting to see a lot of teams still affected by the porpoising issue, particularly Ferrari. This was an issue, of course, a lot of people thought that they'd gotten rid of, or at least some of the teams thought they got rid of, but it seems to have shown up again. So could be interesting to see if that's going to affect some of the teams as we're about to get underway. Davina, in the comments, your predictions. You got Charles Leclerc on pole position. I like the way you think, Davina. I hope so too. Max Verstappen P2, Sergio Perez P3. Race predictions. Bottas in P1. Wow. I'll tell you what. Perez second and K-Mag. I'll tell you what, Davina. If we have a race like that tomorrow, I'm certainly going to be subscribing to whatever news feed or whatever show you have. That would be certainly interesting. But yeah, it could be a crazy race. You know, I watched the F2 race. A lot going on. Dennis Hauger cruelly denied a victory after some mad controversy involving him pitting under the safety car when he was told to go through the pit lane, and then the pit lane was closed and they changed their mind at the last second, which can very, very harsh. I definitely recommend you go check that out if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, certainly could be quite interesting. And Carlos Sainz, it's going to be a big one for him. He looked fast as well for Ferrari, just a little bit behind Leclerc. But we'll have to see how he gets on. Just seeing Valtteri Bottas now. It's going to be a big session for him. You know, I obviously I don't like to play favourites too much, but I really like what Valtteri Bottas is doing at Alfa Romeo so far. So I hope he has a good session. As you can see in my predictions on screen, Valtteri Bottas P5. You know, I'm going in on Bottas. I think he's going to have a very good session. That Ferrari power unit seems to be doing well. And, you know, Bottas has been a very solid qualifier for Alfa Romeo, it must be said. You know, he was going up against arguably one of, if not the greatest driver of all time in Lewis Hamilton. And, you know, he was doing an incredible job, but ultimately it's against Lewis. What are you going to do? So we're just about to start qualifying now. The first car coming out are the two Husses of Mick Schumacher and K-Mag. Mick Schumacher's really got some work to do to try and close up on K-Mag. He was half a second off of Kevin Magnussen in practice free, which might not sound like a lot, but Kevin Magnussen well in the top 10, Mick Schumacher just missing out, and he needs to close that deficit. Williams going to be an important one for them. Seem to be lacking a bit of pace, Williams. at the back of the field like the other Mercedes powered teams. But we'll have to wait and see. I just got Gordon Ramsay, the world-renowned chef, a guest at Red Bull this weekend. And, Red Bull seem to have a lot of guests in, the celebrity spotlight as far as they're concerned. And, it is a beautiful setting. Just looking at the track now, beautiful setting on the circuit at Saudi Arabia at night. I always have a thing for night races. Singapore's probably my favourite one. Bahrain's okay, but, Bahrain doesn't feel like a proper night race to me. But somewhere like this with all the lights going on, it's a beautiful setting, a beautiful view. Definitely a spectacle around the world at Saudi Arabia. So hopefully we're going to be treated to a very good qualifying session like we were last season. Plenty of drama, plenty of excitement. But yeah, guys, if you're just joining us for the first time, this is a live stream of F1 qualifying at Saudi Arabia. And joining us here with DNF1. If you are new, of course, make sure to say hi to us in the chat. Let me know your predictions. Hopefully, some of the wilder ones come true. I definitely want to see that. But let us know what you think. Who's going to get on pole position? Are there going to be any shocks? We saw a good one earlier on where the 1892 Reds podcast said that Lewis Hamilton might not get through Q2. And based on what we saw in practice today, that could possibly happen. So, what a shock that would be if Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, over 100 Grand Prix and pole positions, and he may not get through to Q2. That would be some shock. Just watching Carlos Sainz now warming up to start his first lap. In practice, it did seem that a lot of the drivers were doing a few slow warm-up laps. It seems that they're trying very, very hard not to take out too much energy in the tyres. As you can see in the Ferrari garage, Fabio Capello, the former England manager, Fabio Capello, and yeah, the England team doing rather well at the moment in football. I think they'll be playing pretty soon tonight in a friendly, but, Fabio Capello, not quite as successful with the England team. Davina asks, are we doing the race tomorrow? So, unfortunately, Davina, we're not doing race watch-alongs at the moment. That might be something we may consider in the future. But, of course, if you want to hear our thoughts on the race, we will be doing the podcast of the race review later that day, and that's not live, I'm afraid, but that will come out on the channel on Monday. Just watching Lando Norris now come through up in the first sector, looking solid at the moment, but McLaren really do need to try and find some pace here. Just got the driver's eye view as well. It looks absolutely stunning. Must be said, really, really loving this cockpit view that Formula One have brought in. It's been something we've been asking for years as fans, and I'm really glad to see it in the sport. It's probably the closest thing we're going to get to actually being in the car ourselves, so really loving that so far. And Lando Norris does a 102 in the middle sector. That's about a second slower than what the likes of Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen were doing as well. So, but yeah, no, let me know what you think of these cockpit views, guys. Are you enjoying them? Would you like to see more of that on a regular basis, or do you feel a little bit nauseous when you watch it? Because it is quite interesting. Lando Norris now coming across the line. This will be the first time on the board, a 130.5. So to put that into perspective, that's about 0.8 of a second slower than what the likes of Verstappen and Leclerc were doing in practice earlier today. Kevin Magnussen's fastest of all. So Norris is second on the board. Haven't seen the times on the timing screens yet. Just watching Carlos Sainz now. As I said, I think these guys are going to be doing a few warm-up laps. They've been quite slow here. Going to see a replay of Lewis Hamilton going into turn 1. Went in quite deep, and then he lost the front end a little bit there on turn 2. So that's proven to be quite a difficult area for the drivers to try and get that right. They've been losing the front end of the car quite a lot, and another snap of oversteer for Lewis there going into turn 4. So the car's sliding around quite a bit there. It looks like Lewis is on the mediums. And it's quite interesting, actually, because the medium tyres round this circuit have proven to be quite close on delta to the softs, usually about a few tenths here or there. In some cases, it could be on level in these cooler conditions, so it will be interesting to see how they go. Got Max Verstappen now gunning it down the back straight. The scene last season where he infamously brake-checked Lewis Hamilton, so to speak, and I use inverted commas because there was a lot of different opinions on that one. Hopefully we won't see any of those shenanigans this season. And yeah, Davina pointing out Lewis's tyres look cold. They probably were. You know, as I said, it takes a few laps to get these tyres up to temperature. Max Verstappen coming down the back straight. It doesn't look like he's starting a lap. Yeah, very, very slowly through turn 1. We've got Carlos Sainz now, who looks like he's on a lap. He's on the softer tyres. So we'll see how he gets on. This would be good to see what he's doing there as he overtakes Max Verstappen going into turn 4 now. The little right to left there, carrying a lot of speed in the Ferrari too. That Ferrari looks absolutely stunning. I might be biased because I'm a Ferrari fan by nature, but that certainly looks like a very good looking car. Let me know in the comments, guys, what car you like the look of. What's your favorite looking car from the 2022 roster? Carlos Sainz goes 2 tenths faster than Kevin Magnussen into just seeing a text come through. My bad on that one. Sorry about that. Charles Leclerc, 10.5 faster than his teammate Carlos Sainz going into Sector 1 as well now. So just on board with Sainz at the moment. See how he gets on going into Sector 2. Will be interesting to see how the 2 Ferrari drivers get on this weekend. Last season, they did come together a little bit, had a bit of a mini battle there, getting in each other's way. To this weekend, they certainly look like they could be on par to try and, well, get a race win. Could be another 1-2 like we saw in Bahrain. Charles Leclerc 7 tenths up on Kevin Magnussen. Purple Sector 1, purple Sector 2. Carlos Sainz now coming through to the final corner, the long left-hander, which they have extended the exit to this corner. It's a yellow flag in Sector 2. Looks like someone might have had an incident there. Might want to try and get the time. And it's a red flag has just come out. So that lap, Carlos Sainz, how unlucky is that for Sainz? Red flag comes out here and trying to wait and see what's happened on the track. But that lap will not count for Sainz and it won't count for Leclerc either. And it looks like is that a Williams? Yes, it is a Williams, and it's Nicholas Latifi off at, trying to think what turn that is. Might be turn 7. Nicholas Latifi in the wall. Can't hear what he's saying on the radio, so we'll have to wait and see there. But looks like he might have lost it at the back end coming out of there, and the way that's positioned, quite conveniently where the marshals can gather that. But it looks like that's Nicholas Latifi's session over, and that's a shame for him. I think Williams, whilst granted it looked like Williams might have been the favourites to go out in Q1, just seeing a replay now of Nicholas Latifi in his cockpit view. See what happens here. Yeah, he's completely lost the back end. It snapped out on him, probably carrying a bit too much speed straight into the wall, and that's qualifying over for Latifi. Yeah. And it's unfortunate for him. He does take a bit of a shunt on the way in at the front. Hopefully he's okay. We've seen some violent shunts in the past. This one wasn't great, but as you can see, all that oversteer, absolute tank slapper. And when the rear end of the car overtakes the front, you're basically a passenger at that point. And a bit of a nasty shunt there for Latifi. Hopefully he's okay, but that's his qualifying over. And as I said, disappointing for anyone who was on a lap, and just going to have to reset the timer here because obviously the red flag would have stopped the session. So, as I said, disappointing for Latifi, disappointing for anyone who was on a lap, including the 2 Ferraris as well. And Carlos Sainz literally was less than a second away from finishing his lap, and then that red flag comes out, which unfortunately means he's going to have to go back into the pits. He might not need to put another set of tyres on. It depends on how much life he took out of those other ones, but that is the brutal nature of the Saudi Arabian circuit, really. You know, you make one mistake or you're on a qualifying lap, you might encounter traffic that will ruin your lap, or a red flag comes out and it completely ruins your lap time, which means you've got to go around and do it again. Charles Leclerc was another driver that was affected by that. Not sure if Max Verstappen, who was doing his warm-up laps, would have started one of his laps. He might not have done, so he might have been okay. And as you can see, Carlos Sainz coming into the pit lane now. He'd be disappointed by that, because that looked like that was going to be more than good enough to get him through into Q2. But he's going to have to go and do it again. Hopefully he hasn't taken too much out of the tyres. But guys, in the chat, let me know your thoughts so far. And I want to hear what some of you think of some of these new cars. Which ones do you like the look of? As I said, I like the look of the Ferrari. Looking by the chat, David seems to agree with me as well. But let me know what you guys think. As I said, welcome along. If you are just joining us for the first time on the DNF1 Watchalong, it's just me flying solo. So I'm hoping that I'm doing it justice and hoping that you guys are enjoying it so far. We're watching a live watchalong of the F1 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix here at the Jeddah circuit in 2022. At the moment, as you can see, our predictions for the DNF1 team, myself, Courtney Pine and Lee Wallerton, all there for our top 5s. And if you are new and you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do. We've got more great live streams like this and great podcast as well. A bit biased because, of course, I host those, but it's definitely worth checking them out. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out a lot. And hit that like button. Really, really stress that, guys. I know you hear it from loads of YouTubers to say, please hit the like button and subscribe, all of that stuff. We really, really could use your help on this one. If you can like the video for us, we'd really appreciate that, because that allows us to be exposed to plenty of audiences that have probably never heard of us for, and yeah, that would really help us out a lot. So we really appreciate your support. Just waiting now for Latifi's car to be cleared up, and hope. Sorry about that if you can hear any stuff in the background. Just waiting to see when Latifi's car is going to be cleared. And just looking in the garage there at the Mercedes. And haven't really heard much on George Russell this weekend. Currently sitting in P5 behind the two McLarens and the two Hasses. Did his time on the medium tyres. As I said, there doesn't seem to be too much of a delta between the softs and the mediums at the moment. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see as the medical car comes round. I believe Nicholas Latifi's in the car, so they're probably going to take him over to the medical centre just to make sure that he is okay. As I said, he didn't look like a good shunt, but he seemed to be okay from what we could see early on. Hopefully that is the case, and we'll be able to see him racing tomorrow, but he will be starting from the very back of the grid. Davina once again in the comments saying, I think the porpoising makes the cars look bad. They look so fantastic, and then you see them bouncing up and down. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on this one, Davina. I mean, it's quite interesting. We're seeing the world's fastest bouncy castles in front of our eyes right now, all jokes aside. But I guess the fact that, because we saw the likes of Ferrari and to a degree Red Bull a little bit still having these issues, proves that this porpoising issue is not one that's going to go away anytime soon. Just seeing Nicholas Latifi going to the medical centre. Seems like he's okay. Probably a bit annoyed about that incident. Sometimes that happens, but yeah, it's just one of those things. Hopefully the teams will be able to get on top of it, but it is one of those issues that the new era of ground effect cars seems to have caused. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see if the teams can get on top of that, and of course, how quickly it will take them. It's not an easy solution, especially in a cost cap era. And it looks like we're about to get underway again. I think Latifi's car has been cleared, just waiting for the green light in the pit lane to signal the restart of the session. Got Davina in the chat as now they're cut to Anthony Davidson from Sky F1. If you are watching the Sky coverage as well, just talking about Lewis Hamilton getting a little bit sloppy at turn one. The car starting to move around a little bit, and as you pointed out, Davina, early on, the medium tyres might have been a bit cold. Mercedes tend to be quite slow on their warm-up laps, so perhaps he didn't get those up to temperature, and he's trying to throw the car into the corners at speed, but the front end is just not biting at the moment. So certainly food for thought. Quite interesting that Mercedes are running on the medium tyres. Perhaps they feel that they need to try and get a few laps in. Might be carrying a bit of fuel as well. Just seeing another replay, Nicholas Latifi. Yeah, for me, I think he's just carried a bit too much speed into the corner on entry, and then he's completely lost the back end, and then, you know, that's a good night, Irene. We'll see you tomorrow for the race at the back of the grid, Nicholas. And yeah, I'm sure a little bit of Nutella and pancakes for Nicholas will help soothe his woes, but you know, that can happen sometimes when these cars are ultra light. You're pushing as fast as you can on a track where you really have to get the rhythm right. So race control saying that the session will resume in just a few moments time. Actually, should actually be any second now, actually, as we are a little bit behind. We're about 20-30 seconds behind the live coverage. So yeah, so we'll just have to wait and see as that gets underway, and we are ready to go. As it looks like Guan Yu Zhou at the front of the queue this time, led by followed by Nico Hülkenberg and Max Verstappen. And of course, we've got Lance Stroll in the pit lane as well. Nico Hülkenberg stepping in again for Sebastian Vettel, who's still struggling with COVID, wasn't able to get a flight out to Saudi Arabia and compete at this weekend's Grand Prix. So hope you get better soon, Seb. We'll certainly hope to see you at the Australian Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time. Davina also mentioned in the chat, such a scary track, in my opinion. Super fast cars alongside very slow cars. Last year was incident-free for the most part. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Davina. This has been a problem on tracks like this. Now, the stewards in the FIA were telling the drivers that they were going to be clambering down and punishing drivers who were going ridiculously slow on out laps or cool down laps, etc., etc., and they were causing hazards on the circuit. Especially this circuit averages around 250 kilometers per hour on an average lap, so that's scarily fast. It's probably the fastest circuit on the calendar, perhaps with the exception of Monza. Although I'd have to check that to be sure, so don't quote me on that. Although if you do have time to check and let me know in the chat, what the average speed is around Monza on a flying lap, then please do let me know. It'd be interesting to see. As we now got the cars jockeying for position, trying to get some clear air. Looks like Max Verstappen has cleared the Alfa Romeo, and looks like he'll be first one over the line with 10 minutes to go in Q1. A lot of the big guns still yet to complete a lap. Of course, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc were not able to complete their first runs, which would have easily seen them through into Q2. And let's not forget, track evolution is going to be key. There's going to be a lot of time to be found and improved on the circuit. And we're just with Max Verstappen now, so hopefully we can follow him for his first proper run. I think the favourite for pole position this weekend, Max Verstappen, and he's looked very, very quick. And so it'll be interesting to see what he can do. He looked quick in as he got a bit of a snap of oversteer on the exit of turn 2 there on board with Max, who had that brilliant 2/3 lap before he crashed it. Hopefully this time in Q3 he's able to get a lap similar to that, but finish it this time rather than hitting the barrier at the final corner. Let's see what Max Verstappen can do as he comes up now to the first sector. Now, Max has not been electrifyingly quick in Sector 1. That's usually belonged to the Ferraris, and but he's 3.5 tenths up in Sector 1 on Magnussen. So that's a good first sector so far. Stephen Featley F1 bigging me up there. Thank you so much, Stephen. Really appreciate the support. And let's see what Max Verstappen can do in the middle sector there. Looking pretty quick. Now, this is the part of the lap where Max does tend to make up the time. The Red Bulls, both him and Perez, seem to be very quick in the middle sector. That Honda power unit doing wonders around there. And as you get there, you go 3/4 of a second up on Magnussen. It's around where Charles Leclerc was before his first lap got ruled out because of the red flag. Leclerc now just under 6/10 of a second up on Magnussen after Sector 1. Mega Sector 1 from Carlos Sainz, 7/10 up in Sector 1 as Verstappen goes through the final corner. Now let's see what he can do as he comes across the line. What's it going to be? This is surely going to be fastest for Max Verstappen. Easily fastest, a 1:29.3, the fastest lap of the weekend so far. A bit of a so-so final sector, but he's on the board and he's going to be safely through. Charles Leclerc slow in the, well, actually no, sorry, the time is a bit different there because he's against Verstappen now. 3/10 up on Verstappen. Sainz 4/10 up on Verstappen. So the Ferraris look like they've turned the wick up on these engines. So Ferrari could be doing a Mercedes on us once again. It looks like Ferrari have turned it up for qualifying just when we thought they might be struggling. Lewis Hamilton after 2 sectors, 8/10 down on Max Verstappen as we've got Charles Leclerc coming over the line. This is going to be fastest of all surely, and it is a 1:29.039. Carlos Sainz was even quicker. Is this going to be a 1:28? It is going to be a 1:28. What a lap from Sainz. So Sainz throws his hat in the ring. So Ferrari have turned the wick up on these cars and they've come to play. Let's see what Lewis Hamilton does now as he comes across the line. Only good enough for P12. 1.6 or 1.7 seconds slower than Carlos Sainz on the soft tyres. And that's going to be a very sobering thought as we go to the Mercedes garage. Toto Wolff looking on. I can't see his face, but I don't imagine he's very happy with that one. And yeah, Stephen Featley there, thank you so much for commenting on that. 247k, 264k in 2020 Monza. Yeah, I think Monza still has the record for the fastest average speed at when these cars go at full tilt. I remember Juan Pablo Montoya many years ago in the Williams doing the ultimate fastest time. I think that was broken at Monza a couple of years ago. So yeah, thanks for that. That's still up there. And we'll have to wait and see. As I said, Davina, I hope you're right on this one. I hope we don't see any major crashes or anything like that. Fortunately, these guys have been good enough to avoid that, but it is quite dangerous when you've got the cars going at such speed, approaching slower cars, who tend to rely heavily on their engineers or, you know, the radio comms to basically let them know where everyone is on the circuit and try and get out of the way because it's such a fast-flowing circuit. It's so hard to stay offline when you're going at slow speed and someone's coming at you. You really got to hope that your eyes and your ears and everything is switched on to avoid oncoming traffic. Seeing Lando Norris now, P14 at the moment. Teammate Daniel Ricciardo on the bubble, just behind Pierre Gasly. Sorry, Gasly on the bubble in P15 at the moment. As I said, the bottom 5 cars going out in Q1. Norris at the moment, 4/10 of a second slower than Carlos Sainz in the first sector. Not bad thing, all things considered. The Ferraris are mighty there, so that's probably about half a tenth slower than what Kevin Magnussen did. So not a bad first sector for Norris. Got Mick Schumacher and Valtteri Bottas. Adam looks like Gareth Southgate. Yeah, thanks for that. And I think Richard Osman is probably more accurate. For those of you that watch Pointless, Richard Osman It's probably a more accurate look-alike for me. I think I've kind of grow out of Will from In Between Us or Simon Bird if you watch Friday Night Dinner or something like that. Anyway, back to the Formula 1. Norris now. Let's see what he can do. Middle sector was personal best. Mick Schumacher looks like he's made a mistake somewhere. He's probably going to have to go again. Valtteri Bottas, currently P6 at the moment. Watch out for Bottas. George Russell doing a much better time. Didn't see that lap, but George Russell right in the mix, so it looks like he's going to be okay. Norris now P5. The track seems to be coming alive now. Track evolution really coming in. So I'm guessing perhaps the top three guys are probably safe. Bottas goes P5 just behind George Russell, so that's a good lap from George Russell. And we see Guan Yu Zhou now coming through the final corner. Let's see what he can do. Did a solid job in qualifying in Bahrain. Can he get into the top 10? He can. P8 for Guan Yu Zhou. Will that be enough to see him through? Kevin Magnussen goes P7. Ocon now in the pink Alpine coming across the line. What can he do? He's P11. Daniel Ricciardo on a decent lap as well. He's up to P11. So Daniel Ricciardo and Norris, the McLarens, look like they've got themselves in good shape, although Ricciardo could come under pressure as Pierre Gasly through the final corner. Gasly looked quick in P3 before he had the drivetrain issue. What's this time going to be? This could put Lewis Hamilton into the bottom 5. It does put Hamilton to the bottom 5 as Gasly goes 5th fastest, but Hamilton set 2 personal bests as he's about to come across the line now in the Mercedes. What can Hamilton do? And he does. He does not improve. Lewis Hamilton does not improve. He is still in the bottom 5. Lewis Hamilton could go out in Q1, folks. Unbelievable. Lewis Hamilton could go out in Q1 now as Mick Schumacher currently on the bubble. Personal best in Sector 1, so in Sector 2. We'll have to wait and see what he can do. But Lewis Hamilton may only have one shot. He may not have another lap in him. He may not have enough fuel to do another lap. So what a huge surprise that could be, especially when his teammate is in P4. Mr. Saturday coming back to the fore when Mercedes need him. But Lewis Hamilton, Formula 1's qualifying king, is on the verge at the moment. He could go out here. Mick Schumacher goes P11 now, so he looks like he might have got himself safe. We'll have to wait and see. Just a few tenths behind. Hamilton radio, I wish I could hear it. For those of you that are watching this and see Hamilton's radio, do let me know what they're saying. Of course, I can't play the audio, and I can't play the audio because I don't want this video to get copyrighted, but let's see. Has Lewis Hamilton got enough fuel in the car to do another lap? And yeah, Haas looking awesome. Yeah, I agree, Davina. They look great. I'm really enjoying seeing Haas doing so well after so many years of torture and difficult periods for them. And it's a great team, a great bunch of people, and have done a great job. Just 2 minutes left to go. Watching Lewis Hamilton now, at the moment, on the verge of going out of qualifying. We'll have to wait and see. As I said, more Hamilton radio coming in. I don't know if he's talking about a problem or an issue. Lewis saying he can't improve. And wow, I mean, qualifying's tight this year, and I think it was the 1892 Reds podcast said that Lewis was going out in Q1, sorry, Q2, I should say. And wow, we knew Mercedes were struggling. We knew the Mercedes power teams were having a problem. Lewis Hamilton, is he shaping up for one final run? Looks like he is. On the straights, Lewis a second slower on the straights than Max Verstappen. That is a huge amount of time. And that seems to be where he's losing the time now. But Lewis now gunning it across the line. It's going to be last chance saloon. Is Lewis Hamilton going to go out in Q1 here at Saudi Arabia? The Grand Prix winner last season. Unfortunate runner-up in the championship to Max Verstappen last season, although controversially. Now, what is he going to do? This could prove to be one of the most important laps of his career so far, although I might be exaggerating a little bit under the circumstances as Bottas goes P5, just improving there. So he's ahead of Perez. Both Ferraris, Perez, George Russell in the pits, sitting comfortably at the moment. Let's see what Lewis Hamilton can do in Sector 1. He's a 10th up on Lance Stroll so far. So far, so good with that Mercedes power unit. He shouldn't lose any time to Lance Stroll, although Lewis still struggling to keep that car going smoothly through the corners. It looks a real handful at the moment for Lewis Hamilton. Not what you really want to be doing in this turbo hybrid era. We'll have to wait and see what Lewis can do now as he approaches Sector 2. He really needs to find some performances. Ocon goes up into P11. He looks safe through. What is Lewis going to do? He's lost a 10th to Stroll in the middle sector. He's only half a 10th up, so he is really on the bubble here as he's throwing it about like it's a ball. And I can't finish the joke there on that one, so I'm just going to ignore that one as Lewis now approaching the final corners. And AlphaTauri there, but he's nowhere near him. Comes through the final corner. What is Lewis Hamilton going to do? He puts it down, pedal to the metal as he comes across the line. What is the time going to be for Lewis Hamilton? Is he going through? Yes, Lewis Hamilton just about gets through to P15, but Stroll comes across the line, and can he improve? And now he's knocked Hamilton out. Stroll has knocked Hamilton out of qualifying. Unbelievable. Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, over 100 Grand Prix and pole positions to his name, is going out of qualifying in Q1. Unbelievable. George Russell, his teammate, as you can see, a fan there cannot believe what she is seeing. I'm with you on that one. On the big screen, she cannot believe it. Lewis Hamilton out of qualifying in Q1. And I'll tell you what, folks, I cannot remember the last time Lewis Hamilton failed to make it through to Q1. But that just shows how difficult this new Mercedes is proving to be at the moment. And George Russell, of course, he's through. One of the fastest guys, but Lewis really struggling. And, you know, in the past, we often say with Lewis Hamilton that despite problems with a starting position, that he's able to recover it. But he is going to have a real tough time to recover that one tomorrow, as Toto Wolff looking distraught. And wow, I mean, it says it all, the reactions all around, the shock of what we've just seen here. Lewis Hamilton, Formula One's generational GOAT, if you like, not going through to Q2, 6.5 tenths off of George Russell. Let me know what your thoughts are in the chat, guys. And yeah, Luke pointing out, yeah, Courtney saying Hamilton was going to be P4, Lee was going to say P5. Well, Mercedes really, really struggling, and unbelievable stuff there. But yeah, let me know your thoughts of Q1, guys, as just a few moments away before we go to Q2. Start it all again to reset the time into 15 minutes, and unbelievable stuff. And I'm going to take a quick drink of water while we wait for Q2, because I've been going on for about 20 minutes now, so bear with me, folks. So thank you very much, Davina. Really, really appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying it on the coverage as well. So, yeah, big changes happening this year indeed. Absolutely. And, you know, Mercedes, as I said, they have been struggling to find the performance in the car. We certainly hope that there's more to come from this car, that we know Mercedes characteristically tend to produce cars that, how can I put this, tend to have a bit of a diva kind of complexity to them. That there's an absolute brilliant range in there for them to find, and when they find it, they really are on form. But today, Hamilton really not able to find it for once. You know, and this is a very, very rare thing. Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton struggling today. Luke Burns saying Lewis Hamilton strolls out of qualifying. Yeah, I mean, it is a joke. Very, very clever. You know, congrats to whoever come up with that one. And no, I'm not going to take down Courtney's prediction. It's there, you know. There's 4 other guys in there that, you know, he might get those all right. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Down that water as quick as Mark downs a pint, yeah. And yeah, Mark, a good friend of mine, can certainly drink beer like a fish. And so certainly, yeah. Very thirsty work on commentary. It's amazing how quickly your mouth gets dry when you're sort of constantly talking through a live stream. But guys, of course, I hope you're enjoying it so far. Thank you so much for joining us on the live stream. As I said already, if you are new to the channel, please do consider subscribing to us at DNF1. We really, really appreciate your support. And if you can, smash that like button. We really could do with your help. So please, if you can, like the video, and that will really help us out a lot. And, of course, get our channel out to so many people who haven't heard of us yet. As I see some of you lovely lot who have joined us for the first time as well. So we're about to start Q2. And it's just showing live images now of Lewis Hamilton. I can imagine visibly distraught. It's been a difficult weekend for a lot of the drivers out there. And, of course, Lewis being one of the senior figures in F1 amongst the drivers. Obviously, a lot on his plate and a lot of responsibility on his shoulders with everything that's going on outside the circuit as well. Tending to be the voice of reason. And this weekend, well, I wouldn't say he's not been on the pace, but he's certainly not had it as easy as perhaps he would have liked. But it's been a very, very difficult day for him. And he's out of qualifying, so he will not be taking part. If you've just joined us, this big headline, as I said already, 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, Sir Lewis Hamilton, I should say, of course, rightly so and deserved, is going to be taking no further part in qualifying. Qualified P16, knocked out in qualifying, so really struggling for pace, 6.5 tenths slower than his teammate George Russell. And yeah, absolutely. Just seeing Davina's comment in there. Lewis Hamilton, love him, but he's won everything, all of it, 7.5 times and then some. This is a young man's game. Margins massive. You just can't have that same first. It's a big ask. He is Superman, but can't see the rest of the comment there. But no, I understand that. I mean, Lewis's drive and hunger to continue to succeed in Formula One is unparalleled, and it is ultimately a big part of what makes him as great as he is, as well as being able to be such a talent and so good at what he does. For me, it kind of brings back memories of when Michael Schumacher came back to Formula One. You know, was the hunger still there? Very different set of circumstances to Lewis, and Lewis is obviously a lot more driven today than Michael was back then when he made his return. But I don't think it's a time thing. With all respect, I think it's a fair comment, but I don't think it's a case where Lewis underperformed because, I mean, he was superb in Bahrain. You know, the car was not there. He didn't have it underneath him, didn't really have a chance to win, and he drove a fantastic race. And yes, he inherited a few positions because of what happened to Red Bull, but he put himself in a great position to get on the podium. And I thought that was one of his better drives in recent years. So I think it's still there. It's a bad day for him. It's just not come together. And he'll be looking for answers. I'm sure the Mercedes team will be looking for answers to try and figure out what they can do to help him. And it will certainly be fun to watch Lewis in the race tomorrow, trying to make his way through the field and get some points on the board. Because right now, Mercedes don't look like they've got the car at the moment to challenge the likes of Ferrari and Red Bull. But hopefully, they will be back to where they belong, fighting in the top of the championship in a three-way fight. I mean, I would love to see Sir Lewis against Max, against Charles Leclerc. That would be pretty special. And let's not forget Carlos Sainz, George Russell, and Sergio Perez. Got to add them to the mix. But we're now about to start Q2. Charles Leclerc was third fastest after Q1. So he'll be looking to try and see what he can do. Was he third fast? Actually, it might have been fastest. No, excuse me, it just said P3 on there. So I might be wrong. Q2 now, just getting underway now, as Mick Schumacher first man out, Kevin Magnussen, and then Fernando Alonso. Didn't see much of Fernando Alonso, but he was safely through. And I believe both the McLarens, they went through as well. Sorry, I've been so interested in what Lewis Hamilton going out in qualifying. I didn't pay attention to the other guys, but Nicholas Latifi, of course, crashed out. He was the first man out, so he'll be starting at the back of the grid after a crash at turn 4. Charles Leclerc now in the Ferrari. Looks absolutely stunning, that car. To be fair, a lot of these cars look very, very good. This is probably one of the best looking cohort of cars that we've seen in Formula One for some time. These Grand Effect cars delivering on performance and also delivering on the aesthetics as well, as we get a nice little sky shot of the Saudi Arabia track in Jeddah. Few changes made to this year's circuit, just a bit of a widening over at the final corner and a few other areas as well. Nothing too much. The layout pretty much the same. So hopefully we will be able to get a bit of a leaderboard on this so I can do a quick run through of who went out in qualifying. So I do apologise. I was paying mostly attention to what was going on. I think Alex Albon went out as well, Nico Hulkenberg, and one other car as well. So we'll wait and see for the leaderboard to come out and find out who wasn't through. Who did go through, though, the two Hasses, Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen, once again getting into Q2. Can they both get into Q3? Mick Schumacher, I believe he just missed. Yeah, he just missed out in Q3 in Bahrain in P11, I believe it was. So he'll be looking to try and get through to Q3. And of course, if this is the first time that you've joined Formula One, and you obviously need to be aware of the rules for Q2. Of course, the tyre rule for Q2 is no longer there, no longer a part of F1 this season. It's been removed as Kevin Magnussen goes very much loose, very loose, coming out of turn 2 there. The back end really coming out on him as he rode the curb a bit too much there, following his teammates. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do, K-Mag, after 18 months out of a Formula 1 car, jumps back in and gets a solid P5. And we'll be looking to try and do something similar here. Super heroic, super K-Mag. We'll have to wait and see. Even West Ham can finish higher than Hamilton. I don't know who that is changing their name all the time, but we'll have to wait and see. And yeah, good point, Davina. It's absolutely true. You know, there's a lot of risk to this, and I'm sure, you know, as you get older, with all due respect to Lewis Hamilton, I think as we all get older, we tend to be a bit more risk averse with things than we were when we were younger. Although you could probably say that comes with wisdom of circumstances. You know, the more wise you are, the more risk averse perhaps you are. But you know, I'm sure if Lewis felt that he wasn't prepared to take the risks that he was when he was younger in Formula 1, the risks that you do every day, then he wouldn't want to be a Formula 1 driver. But as I said, hopefully for his sake that this is just a one-off and they can come up with whatever issue with the car. It's proving rather difficult for Mercedes, not just them, a few others as well. I guess it goes to show how good that lap was from George Russell. Anyway, back to qualifying. Kevin Magnussen now coming through the final corner. Let's see what lap time he can get on the board. We've got Mick Schumacher ahead of him. Just finished this lap. We'll have to weigh what K-Mag's lap's going to be. P2, 1 minute 30.2. Purple in the final sector. We've got Esteban Ocon coming down the back straight, although he looks like he's on a slow lap. Charles Leclerc, purple in sector 1 and 2. Ricciardo coming across the line. P2, 130.0. Where's Charles Leclerc as Ocon is about to start a flying lap? That's not going to get him through to Q3. Charles Leclerc, 128.8. Very similar to what Carlos Sainz managed at the end of Q1. So Carlos Sainz was fastest, Leclerc was P2. So Leclerc comes across the line, does a similar lap to Carlos Sainz. So Ferrari once again. Adam has two. He has two names, but only one. Oh, well, that's all the hints that I need on that one. Anyway, we'll move on. And Lando Norris starting his lap now. George Russell getting through into Q2. Goes second fastest for 129.6. 7.5 tenths slower than Charles Leclerc. And to be fair, that's probably where we'd expect Mercedes to be at the moment. They do seem to be that much slower, although George did set his on the medium tyres. As I said, not much of a delta between the soft and the medium tyres around this circuit because of the smooth track surface. So over the course of the lap, the soft tyres tend to lose a little bit of grip, whereas the mediums tend to retain that. So it kind of balances out on that one. So it's a good lap from George there. That might get him through to Q3. We'll have to wait and see. Chris Welch saying, hope you're well, mate. Yep, absolutely fine, Chris. Glad to have you on board. Thanks again for tuning into the show. And great stuff. Great to see you once again. And looks like we're with the other Ferrari now. Carlos Sainz on a lap. And as you can see, probably should ignore that. 6 seconds faster than Alonso, although it looks like a warm-up lap for Alonso. So we'll have to wait and see what Sainz does. Fully expect Carlos Sainz to be fighting for the pole after that mega lap in Q1 of 128.8 from Sainz, the fastest lap we've seen so far this weekend. So he could be challenging for pole. And out of nowhere, Ferrari have turned the wick up on their engines. Have Red Bull got anything to respond? It looks like they do. Sergio Perez, 0.04 of a second slower than Leclerc in P2. We haven't seen that lap, but looks like he's found some performance. Carlos Sainz now under 2 tenths slower than Charles Leclerc. We'll have to wait and see what this final sector's going to look like. Sainz has been mega fast this weekend. He mega fast in Q1. Now comes through the final corner going at 202 miles per hour, one of the fastest in the speed traps here. Alonso goes P3 of a 129.4. What is Carlos Sainz going to do? Is he going to be on the 128s as well? And he's not. A 129.0, good enough for P3. That should get him through to Q3 relatively comfortably. So the Ferraris and the Red Bulls all literally within a tenth and a half of each other. Verstappen going very wide there. Purple middle sector for Max Verstappen. So here we go. Let's see what Max can do. Can the world champion get himself up the leaderboard and see if he can get himself into that pole position fight as he comes through the final corner now? What is the time going to be? The broadcast freezing a little bit there from Sky. Max Verstappen coming across the line. Is he going to go fastest of all? He does a 1 minute 20. See what the time is. It's come through 128.9 for Verstappen. P3. 600ths off Leclerc, 200ths off Perez, and just under a tenth quicker than Sainz. So there you go. The top four separated by a tenth and a half. Very, very nicely. And yeah, it looks like Max could find a little bit more time. I think we saw in practice earlier today that Max Verstappen had a bit of time on the board. But it'll be interesting. Max did make that mistake there. He went over the bumps there and completely over the curb in practice 3, quite close to the wall. So Max really pushing in that area of the lap, and you just feel that if he can hook it up, that's going to be a game changer for him in that part of the lap. As you see in Esteban Ocon as well, approaching traffic, and it looks like a McLaren ahead of him that's got in his way, and I'm not sure who that is. That might be Daniel Ricciardo that has got in front of him, and that looks like a bit of a block, really. I think Ricciardo could be in trouble with the stewards, and it's a bit unfortunate, Ricciardo, because of where Ocon has called him, but I've seen penalties, grid penalties given for blocking that have been nowhere near as, that have been a lot less than that. I'm trying to find the right words for that one, sorry. But so Ricciardo could be in trouble with the stewards for that one. Now, Valtteri Bottas on a flying lap, as is Guan Yu Zhou. Bottas 4 tenths off of Charles Leclerc. As you can see the stewards with the notification saying that the turn 7 incident with Ricciardo and Ocon will be investigated after the session. Zhou also on a flying lap. What is Bottas going to do? He was very quick in Q1. Can Bottas get himself into Q3? What is the time going to be? Half a second quicker than Ricciardo, so 1 minute 29.5. Decent lap, that's good enough for P6. What is Zhou going to do? He's only P11, so Zhou will have to go again. That is not going to be good enough. Half a second off his teammate Bottas. Fernando Alonso holding up very nicely there in P5, that earlier lap that he did. Looking very, very good for Fernando Alonso. So Bottas, my pick for P5 at the moment. And he's not too far away from the likes of the Red Bulls and the Ferraris, but it looks like Red Bull and Ferrari are in a league of their own right now, as they looked in Bahrain. It looks like they're continuing that trend as well. So let us know, guys, what are you going to your predictions now that we've seen some of the cars do some laps? What are your predictions? Have they changed? You know, are you going to stick to your guns on some of them? You know, and also more reaction if you can. So the huge news in Q1 that Lewis Hamilton has been knocked out in Q1 and will start the race 16th on the grid. Of course, we'll have to wait and see if other penalties to other drivers applied. Just seen a replay of Pierre Gasly. What is going on there? It looks like a bit of his floor has been chipped off. Perhaps, so we'll have to wait and see if that is right or not. And it looks like the floor was really low to the ground there. So that Alpha, I don't know if the Alpha Tauri is meant to run that low. Looks like, yeah, so they're putting some good old duct tape. Some of the simple solutions are some of the best ones, guys. A bit of good old duct tape there on the car to fix that floor. And hopefully that will be as good as new. Mick Schumacher now in the Haas, a second slower than Charles Leclerc in the Haas, a driver who may one day end up driving for Ferrari. We'll have to wait and see if that comes to fruition, like his father now on a flying lap. Both the Ferraris are out on track, as he's had to overtake both of those without any major issues. Probably looking to get a sighter in for Q3, but they are probably safely through. I'd say the top 4 are very safe at this moment. Can't really see anyone beating that. Mick Schumacher. Oh, Mick Schumacher's had a spin. Oh, what a crash. Huge crash. Mick Schumacher, huge crash into the wall there. Hopefully he's okay. That is a nasty shunt. He had a big crash last season during the race, and yeah, he got completely out of shape there. And that's a huge crash for Mick Schumacher. That's a red flag if I've ever seen one, and hopefully he's going to be okay. 4 minutes and 58 seconds on the clock left before the end of Q2. That's a red flag, and yeah, that was a nasty shunt there by Mick Schumacher, but he got well out of shape. The back end stepped out. And as I said earlier, like what happened to Latifi, once the rear end really steps out on you and overtakes the front, you're a passenger and you're going to end up in the wall. And that was a very high-speed crash for Mick Schumacher. Fortunately, though, the car did spin round, so it was the back of the side of the car that took the brunt of the impact. So hopefully Mick is going to be okay. But that's his qualifying session over. Red flag, just under 5 minutes to go. And I'll just round off the top 10 whilst we wait to see if Mick Schumacher's okay. Hopefully he is. Charles Leclerc fastest, separated by Perez, Verstappen and Sainz to complete the top 4, all separated by a 10.5 at the moment. Then we have Fernando Alonso P5, Bottas in 6th for Alfa Romeo, George Russell, the one remaining Mercedes in P7, Norris P8, Mick Schumacher, who's just had a big crash. We'll have to wait to hear from him. Haven't seen him yet. Hopefully he's okay, but he's currently P9 with Pierre Gasly in P10, with Zhou, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Stroll and Ocon at the moment being eliminated. And we're just waiting to see if we get an update on Mick Schumacher. Hopefully Mick is okay. And well, that was a very nasty crash. As I said, you know, if there is any good news from what we've seen from that accident, was that the back end got out from Mick Schumacher and it hit the side of the car. The side of the car hit the wall rather than a head-on impact or anything like that. So and the car did take a huge impact there. So hopefully the car will be okay. Sorry, not the car. Hopefully Mick will be okay. I do apologise. We'll have to wait and see, guys, what happens here. We're just looking at Daniel Ricciardo with the Google Chrome covers, based on their pace in Bahrain, it was probably more Internet Explorer than Google Chrome. Little IT joke for you guys there. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, these car covers have been quite interesting, some of the designs. As we go back now, we'll finally see Mick Schumacher. It's a bit of a long view, quite a distant view from the camera there. I'd like to see something a bit closer. So, as I said, guys, if you're not watching qualifying with me and you're watching qualifying via me on the live stream, I will update you on mixed condition once we see what's going on. But at the moment, after that huge impact, we only saw a distance view of the car, completely total. The medical car is there as well, so hopefully Mick will be okay. And we'll have to wait and see. As I said, I've got no audio on this because, of course, I can't play the audio back. Obviously, don't want the video to get copyrighted. So if you guys are listening and you're getting an update on the audio, please do let me know in the chat. I'd really, really appreciate that. If you're able to get that and let me know in the chat, do let me know. And hopefully, guys, Mick Schumacher is okay. It was a nasty crash. We'll have to wait and see if we get an update soon. But at the moment, we're currently red flag with just under 5 minutes to go. And you're watching qualifying to watch along on the live stream here with DNF1. We're Q2 in Saudi Arabia. And we've just had a huge crash from Mick Schumacher, if you've just joined us. Really trying to go for it to improve his time. Probably going a bit too much. Losing the rear end of the car. Smashing it into the side of the wall was a huge impact. The car's absolutely totaled. But hopefully Mick Schumacher is okay. And that the car has bore the brunt. But that will be a nasty shunt indeed. As I said, Mick Schumacher had a similar crash last season during the Grand Prix. And as you've seen in the Haas garage, a lot of concerned members of the crew there who would have been hoping to celebrate another brilliant performance from their team. And as you can see, quite a few medical cars there as well. As I said, I can't really get the audio, so I don't know what's going on, if there is any audio feedback telling us if it's good or bad. But we're only getting a camera shot from long distance at the moment. We're not really able to see what's going on. But there's a few medical cars around where Mick Schumacher's Haas is. And it doesn't look a good one at all. As I said, it was a big, big crash. And whilst I try to make it seem like perhaps, hopefully, it's not as bad as it seemed, owing to how durable and how brilliant these Formula One cars are in terms of safety, they've gone absolutely leaps and bounds over the years in terms of protecting the drivers and making sure that they're able to walk away from a lot of big crashes that many years ago they would not have been able to do so easily. Seeing George Russell looking on, hoping for an update and hoping for some good news. I'm sure the rest of us are as well. Carlos Sainz as well, sitting in the cockpit. The two Ferraris were looking to do another lap as a sighter perhaps for Q3. Looking very, very strong indeed, the Ferraris. Red Bull also looking very good as well. The one remaining Haas, Kevin Magnussen, P13 at the moment. Although I'm sure right now he'd be more interested and concerned, as rightly so, in his teammate after that big accident. So, as I said, guys, if you're watching qualifying through this live stream and obviously wait for me to pick up an update as some of the marshals are picking up the debris from that huge crash, this could be a while, this red flag. As I said, there's no real service roads or proper service roads at this street circuit. Most street circuits, it's quite difficult to recover vehicles, so you do tend to take longer than normal circuits. And this street circuit here, there's not really many service roads, so it's very difficult to get a vehicle onto the track. Mark Smith in the comments saying Schumacher's talking to the doctor so he's conscious. That's fantastic news. Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate that. As I said, I'm not getting the audio on the feed for obvious reasons, so I don't know what's going on. Luke Burns also saying Mick's conscious and being lifted out of the car. So Mick seems like he's going to be okay. Might be a little bit injured and bruised, or, you know, we'll have to wait and see. And yeah, Davina's saying it looked like to me went into the wall slightly upwards. Yeah, he probably did, you know, bounce on the curbs. As I was saying, he hit the wall from the side there. If we, I mean, not asking for another replay, but if we do get another replay, it'll be interesting to see how, where he hit the wall exactly. But yeah, so it looks like good news based on what we've seen in the chat there, that Mick seems to be okay at least, and is conscious. And we've got Max Verstappen talking to Adrian Newey. And just seeing, not quite sure what they're saying exactly. It'd be interesting to see, be a fly on the wall for that conversation. Davina saying, yeah, man, I hate these moments. Yeah, absolutely agree. No one really wants to see these. You know, we want to see the cars going fast. We love the risk element to it. We love the danger element. It's exciting to watch. But obviously none of us want to see a huge shunt like that. And unfortunately, that can happen sometimes in a sport like Formula One, you know. And I think it's moments like these where you kind of take for granted how brilliant that these young men, and of course women as well in other forms of racing as well. We saw a huge shunt in the W Series at Spa, where a few drivers, I think Abby Eaton, one of them, had a real big shunt. And sometimes you can almost be forgiven for thinking that F1 or racing in general can seem a bit too safe. But it just owing to the skill and the brilliance of some of these drivers, that when something can go wrong like that, and it's usually the smallest thing, you can end up in the wall like that. So hopefully Mick is going to be okay. Just waiting for further updates at the moment. But we'll just have to wait and see in the meantime. In the meantime, guys, of course, let me know how you're getting on in the chat. Hope everyone is okay. And let me know about your thoughts of qualifying so far. And, of course, any predictions you've got for the race whilst we wait for further updates on Mick Schumacher, and obviously eventually when they're able to clear up the damage to get qualifying back underway. As I said, it could be a long one, so we could be here for a little while, guys. So I do appreciate your patience on this one. But of course, especially on a circuit like this, the most important thing is to make sure, first of all, that Mick Schumacher is okay, and obviously they get the damage cleared off the circuit. And Mark Smith saying now that Mick's just going in the ambulance now, which of course, I should mention, is precautionary of a shunt of that magnitude. So hopefully, you know, Mick will be taken over to the nearby medical centre soon, have his checks, and hopefully he is okay. It could be one of those incidents where he may not be able to compete tomorrow, but then at the same time, that's the least of our concerns right now. The most important thing is Mick's health and Mick's safety. And we'll have to wait and see. Pretty quick getting him in, so hopefully it's a good sign. Yep, absolutely. You know, I remember, not to talk too much about past crashes, but I remember his father, Michael Schumacher, having a big shunt at the British Grand Prix in 1999 at Silverstone. Obviously the sad crash where he broke his leg, and that was obviously not similar to this one, but it was another big shunt. And at the time, obviously, he wasn't moving in the car originally. It was quite a scary sight to see that one. And of course, Formula One cars have come leaps and bounds in terms of their safety and their, you know, their durability and how they're able to protect the cars. And that was a very big shunt that, you know, years ago, you know, could have been a lot worse than it is. You know, hopefully Mick is okay. We'll have to wait and see when we get an update. But as you can see, just live images now of the recovery truck picking up the Huss, and that Huss is absolutely wrecked. The front end has been ripped off. The rear end has been ripped off. It was a very, very nasty shunt. A trail of oil as well at the back, which is important to cover that up as best as they can, because a lot of cars are going to be going through that area at high speed. So obviously the last thing you want is those guys going into the wall. And as we were saying earlier, the track by nature is very, very fast and dangerous. It's a street circuit, and that is kind of part of the appeal and the fun of it, really, the danger element, the risk element to it. But of course, nobody wants to see crashes like that. But you know, this can happen sometimes. The only thing we can hope is that Mick is okay and makes a speedy recovery. So let me know your thoughts, as I said, about qualifying earlier in the chat, guys. What have you thought about qualifying so far, minus obviously what we've seen with Mick Schumacher? Hopefully he's okay. What have your biggest surprises been so far? Of course, Lewis Hamilton going out in Q1 was a big one indeed. And, you know, both McLarens managed to get through to Q2, which it doesn't sound like much of a surprise. But, of course, in Q1, they weren't able to do that in Bahrain. So, at least they're able to do that in this session as well. Nicholas Latifi also having a shunt of his own. And hopefully he's okay, but he'll be starting at the back of the grid. Both Ferrari and Red Bull looking very, very quick at the moment, looking like the class of the field as we expected them to be. Fernando Alonso also looking quick as well. And it's just cutting to an interview with Lewis Hamilton, which of course I won't be able to hear, guys. So once again, I'm going to need you to help me out on this one. If you could let me know what he's saying. And I imagine he'll be very, very disappointed in what's going on, in what had happened. But I'm sure his thoughts are probably, like the rest of us, on Mick Schumacher's well-being. And hopefully he is going to be okay as well. Yeah, that's probably about right, Mark. Just seeing in the comments saying didn't realise the last time Lewis missed Q2 was Brazil in 2017, and again it just shows how, you know, good these guys, how good Lewis is. You know, that's such a shock. to see him out in Q1. I mean, Q2, he may have been on the bubble for Q2. As I said, based on the performance in practice, Lewis did look like, and George Russell as well, to be fair, both of them look like they might be at risk of not going through. But it's still a huge shock to see that Mercedes, the team that have dominated the turbo hybrid era, producing car after car after car, year in, year out, with such unprecedented performance that only really Red Bull were able to challenge in one season when they changed the rules to help Red Bull get to that level. And also Ferrari for a small period in 2017 and 2018 as well. It's such a huge shock that we saw those guys really challenge Mercedes. So to see all of that and then come to this season where there's been the huge rule changes and we all expected Mercedes to be one of the leading candidates, and based on what we saw in testing, it looked like that was going to be the case. I don't think anybody would have expected Lewis Hamilton to go out in Q1 on merit in the second race of the season. As we've seen in the Ferrari garage. Penny for their thoughts on this one. Of course, they'll be very, very happy with the performance of their car so far, but obviously their thoughts will be on Mick Schumacher now. As we see the ambulance coming to the pit lane, hopefully Mick is okay. It'd be interesting to see if he's able to walk out relatively comfortably. I'll be surprised if he's not feeling a little bit sore, but I'll certainly be hoping that it's just a few bruises and scratches at the very, very most that he's dealing with. Mark saying, Hamilton saying he struggled with the balance of the car, not distracted with what is going on around him, and hopes Mick is okay, but he was very quiet, didn't speak much. And I can imagine the last thing Lewis would have wanted to do was that interview right now under the circumstances. I think I remember, Spa a few years ago when sadly the late Antoine Hubert sadly lost his life in a big crash, and Lewis Hamilton was doing a big interview after qualifying in Spa that day. And obviously they'd heard the big shunt going up at the top at Eau Rouge, and obviously hoping everyone was okay. And of course, unfortunately, what happened, and we lost Antoine, and it was a very difficult time. And of course, the last thing you want to be doing when something like that goes on is doing an interview and continuing on with that interview. You don't really want to be there. You want to make sure that everyone's okay. Because, as a community, all the drivers look out for each other. They're aware of the risks that they sign up to. Sometimes you can be forgiven for thinking that F1 is a safe sport to compete in, but that's just a testament to how far they've come in improving safety for the drivers and how durable these cars are, and we can only congratulate them on doing that. And we hope that we get to a point where moments like that will be a thing of the past, and things that have been introduced, innovations over the last few years, like the Halo, has proven to be a rather resounding success. In other racing formats like IndyCar, they have their aero screen, which I think's made a few heroic acts in the last race. Actually, I think a few drivers actually were really helped by that. I think it was a loose bollard that got loose, and it actually hit an aero screen on one of the cars, which was able to save the driver's life. So, that they take these strides forward in safety, and I know some of them might not look so aesthetically pleasing like the Halo was when that was introduced a few years ago. We all hated it, but you can't argue with how good a job that it does. And to be honest, you look at them now and it just looks normal. I mean, has anyone ever seen a video on YouTube where you get someone going around on a Seto Corsa or something like that, and or iRacing, and they're driving without the Halo on a modern day F1 car? It just looks weird. So it just amazes me how accustomed we've come to the changes in Formula One. And as I said, with these new cars, at first they look a little bit strange, but then over time they just look normal. So, safety always triumphs. Safety is always paramount, and you can never stop trying to push for health and safety in sports like Formula One and other racing as well. So hopefully, following on for that huge monologue, that Mick Schumacher will be okay. We'll have to wait and see what updates we get from him. Got in the garage a Mercedes Formula E champion, Nick De Vries, the first ever Formula E world champion in the sport. So in the Mercedes garage as well. Joining in. Hopefully he's doing okay. Seems to be doing rather well in Formula E series at the moment. And as we're waiting for qualifying to get back underway, if you've just joined us, we're currently in a red flag at the moment. Just 5 minutes left to go in Q2. The huge headline is Lewis Hamilton went out in Q1. We're in Q2 right now. Charles Leclerc leading the way ahead of the two Red Bulls and his teammate Carlos Sainz in P4. Red Bull and Ferrari looking in a class of their own at the moment, as they will no doubt fight for pole position a bit later on. But at the moment, we're in a red flag after a huge crash from Mick Schumacher in the Haas. Hopefully Mick is going to be okay, as I see in images now of Christian Horner, talking to Matty Binotto outside the Ferrari garage. Just often see exchanges between those two very often, but I'm sure those two will be having a few more conversations throughout this year as the championship battle starts to take shape. And it very much looks like at the moment that Ferrari and Red Bull are going to be the leading protagonists of this. Mercedes do seem to be a little bit away from that. Hopefully Mercedes will join the fight soon, but it could come at a point where they may find themselves in a lonely third place. We'll have to wait and see. Looks like repairs are obviously being done at the moment to the barriers. And of course, this is another part where you see these big crashes and, you know, you can get the car out of the way, clear up the debris, hope the driver's okay, and etc., and get the session underway. But of course, they have to make sure that the barriers are sufficient because they take a lot of impact and sometimes they can be moved out of the way. It's something similar to what happened to Mick after in the race last season. I think he hit the barriers there and they had to take some time to clear that one off as well. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Let us know what's going on in the comments and let us know your thoughts about qualifying so far and any predictions that you might have. And let me know where you're watching qualifying from around the world. As I was saying, we have a few international guests joining us, which is fantastic. Absolutely love to find out where you guys are watching this channel from. It's always fun to see that we're reaching different parts of the world. So, yeah, let me know where you guys are watching from. Not long left, hopefully, until we get going once again. Just waiting for the green light at the moment. But of course, we're just waiting for the barriers to be repaired and the rest of the damage and debris to be cleared as well. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see so far. Sorry, I usually have more topics to say on this one. Was not anticipating that we'd get a red flag of this distance. But of course, on a track like this, that's always going to happen. As you can see, Daniel Ricciardo at the moment in the garage. Crash helmet off. Probably, I imagine, taking plenty of time to analyse his performance at the moment and see where he can improve. At the moment, currently in P12. And then Carlos Sainz, P4 at the moment, saying he's 9 tenths. We'll say 9 tenths a knockout. That's obviously, he's 9 tenths faster than Pierre Gasly, who's currently in P10 at the moment on the bubble in the AlphaTauri. And it was Yuki Tsunoda that went out in Q1. That was the other driver. So, of course, the Q1 drivers that went out were Nicholas Latifi, Sir Lewis Hamilton, of course, Yuki Tsunoda, and Alex Albon and Nicholas Latifi. So Albon, despite his best efforts, was not able to repeat his heroics in Bahrain. And he will also be starting at the back of the field. And yeah, it's a very important topic, obviously, what was going on in Saudi Arabia. Now that we have a little bit of time to talk about that, you know, obviously the attacks that happened yesterday at the Aramco Petroleum facility, obviously sparking concerns that that it wasn't safe for the drivers to participate at the circuit. And of course, the team principals seemed to be unanimous in thinking that it was. And then, of course, the drivers had a 4-hour meeting amongst themselves, which brought a lot of the team personnel back and the team principals to talk as well. And just getting an update on the football. Switzerland beating England 1-0 at the friendly. Well, it's an international friendly, isn't it? It's not really that important. Obviously, we've got the World Cup coming through. As we're seeing a replay of Nicholas Latifi's crash in Q1. Bit of a shunt there for Nicholas Latifi. Hopefully he's okay. Wasn't the most pleasant crash in the world, but it did seem to lose a lot of his momentum, and he walked back to the medical garage, probably more with a bruised ego than actual physical bruises on his car. So hopefully he'll have a better day tomorrow, but it looks like he's absolutely fine. Smiling away, Nicholas Latifi, so that's always good to see. Hopefully we'll get something similar for Mick Schumacher a little bit later on. So, yeah, but as I said, you know, all this business with what's been going on in Saudi Arabia at the moment, it's always been a very questionable and controversial choice to go racing in a place like Saudi Arabia at the moment. And of course, we've had a lot of other sporting events. We've had the WWE that used to go over there wrestling on a regular basis. We've had World Heavyweight Championship boxing fights. We've had Anthony Joshua won the World Championship against Andy Ruiz Jr. at a fight in Saudi Arabia. And of course, we've had some cricket events and football events as well over there. So, sport, I suppose it does have a responsibility to try and bring about change. Now, of course, I'm not going to pretend that I know the full extent of what's going on in Saudi Arabia in terms of their improvements to, the human rights works, etc., and stuff like that. But it does seem like it still has a long way to go. And at the same time, when you get a situation like this in Formula One, you do hope that, not just so much for the drivers or the staff or the personnel and the media that are there, but you feel F1 needs to have more of a backbone, I suppose, or F1 needs to do more to try and enforce change when these sorts of things happen. And based on what I saw in the events, I don't believe that was the case. I think the drivers and a lot of the team principals, despite what they said, were probably very happy to walk away from this and not race, but I'm sure we'll find out the true reasons afterwards. But it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was F1's finest hour. The only thing that we can hope for is that everyone's going to be okay and that we don't see anything like that for the rest of the weekend. And then whatever happens with the future of the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, we'll just have to wait and see. Just seeing you guys put your 2 cents in the chat on this one. Courtney, one of my co-hosts for DNF1's in the chat, so good to see Courtney. We're going to have to get you on a live stream watch along for a future race. We could also record a bit of a mini podcast while we're at it at the moment. In the interlull whilst we're at red flag at the moment, and just reading through the chat, some of the stuff that I might have missed on this one. Yeah, Courtney saying be very surprised if there was a race here next year. Well, I mean, there's a long-term commitment to racing in Saudi Arabia. Based on what we saw this weekend, we'll have to wait and see if that continues to be the case once everybody gets home. And that's obviously quite a significant thing for those of you that have been following the story on that one. And Davina, you're saying as well, yeah, you agree. It's not a political statement. Of course, it's not it's not about politics. But at the end of the day, if you can't grant assurances and the safety of the people that are there competing in the sport, then of course you really need to ask some serious questions about whether or not it's safe to be there. But we are here. Well, not us personally, but F1 is there at the moment, and all we can hope for is that they put on a good show, and we'll just have to wait and see how this all unfolds right now. So, 5 minutes from the end. And thank you so much for everybody who's tuned into the live stream so far. Really, really appreciate that. Cannot continue to do this without your support, of course. That's the most important thing, and that's ultimately why we do this. But you're watching the live stream of DNF1, watching F1 qualifying here in Saudi Arabia. Currently in a red flag situation, 5 minutes to go before the end of Q2. Currently in a red flag after a huge crash from Mick Schumacher in the Haas. Very nasty incident. Currently sitting in P9 at the moment, so he could still qualify in the top 10 in theory. However, he will not be able to take part in Q3 if that is the case. So he will start from probably P10, I'd say, if he's not able to get through. If he does get through, he will start P10. If he's able to compete tomorrow, we'll have to wait and see. He may not be able to compete at all. It was a very, very nasty crash. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully Mick is going to be okay. We'll have to wait and see if we can get an update on that one. But we'll have to keep an eye on the socials for that one. As you can see on the reel at the bottom, if you're watching, you've got all our socials listed there on social media platforms that we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the YouTube channel DNF1. So make sure to follow those. Really, really means a lot to us. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and like the video as well. As I said, liking the video seems to be what appeases the algorithm at the moment, the almighty YouTube algorithm that lets people know about our videos and lets them tune in. And of course, if it's for the first time, hopefully we're able to keep them on and get them to watch more of our live streams and podcasts as well. So the medical car, the safety car, if you like, going round the red Mercedes safety car, going around the circuit. It looks like they're going to go over to the area where the barrier was damaged after Mick Schumacher's crash to see if that one passes the relative checks to make sure it's okay. So hopefully we'll be able to get back up to racing very, very soon. As you can see, you've got the big, cleaning truck, if you like. I can't think of a better way of putting it. Vocab has completely gone out of the window through this live stream. I thought it had been done by now, but here we are, still watching along and cleaning up that area. Hopefully they'll make that area safe, although that's going to be a very green, slippery area that's not going to be offering a lot of grip. So I imagine a lot of the drivers will be aware of that and hopefully try to fix that area as soon as they can. as we've got one of the, I believe it's one of the race directors. Of course, we've got a few race directors now this season after what happened in Abu Dhabi, where Michael Massey was removed from his role after his involvement in the incident that cost Lewis Hamilton the World Championship last season. Obviously, just checking the area with the marshals to make sure that I'm not quite sure what the substance is. It might be salt. It might be something else that is used to cover up any spillage of oil that would have come from Mick Schumacher's car. And making sure that it's all safe before we go racing again, because, of course, this track is a very high-speed circuit, and the last thing that we want is more crashes like that owing to what has happened there. It is important to note, as we've seen on the broadcast, that the 2022 car has been designed to withstand more energy in a crash, 15% more energy in a crash, and lessons were learned from the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix crash that we saw, the horrible fiery crash from Romain Grosjean that he was very, very lucky to escape from. And of course, Romain Grosjean doing very, very well in IndyCar at the moment, which is always fantastic to see. And of course, as I was saying earlier, this is kind of the important thing with Formula One, that, you know, it is very much a lesson learning exercise. And of course, you know, we always want things to be perfect. We don't want to see moments like that. We certainly don't want to see moments like what we just saw with Mick Schumacher. But of course, F1 able to learn the lessons and try and push the boundaries more and more and more all the time to make racing as safe as it possibly can be. Of course, it's always going to be a risk when you're driving these Formula One cars. It's a very dangerous sport, Formula One. We can't pretend that it isn't, but it's great to see always people pushing to try and make the sport as safe as it possibly can be, always for the better. So it looks like we're about to get underway very, very soon by the looks of it. It looks like the final checks are being done to make sure that the track is absolutely fine. And of course, we don't want them to rush. We want them to take as much time as they need to make sure the track is okay. It looks like the race director just talking with the marshals. Looked like we're about to get the session underway very soon. We saw Max Verstappen getting his crash helmet back on and getting himself ready in the car. So it looks like we're going to get underway very, very soon. Just have to wait momentarily to get that confirmation. Sergio Perez, not in the car, standing on the pit wall, talking to his crew. Currently, at the moment, sitting very, very nicely in P2. Second fastest in Q2 behind Charles Leclerc. 0.04 of a second behind Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, the championship leader, race winner in Bahrain. Perfect Grand Prix weekend for Charles Leclerc. Let me know what you think about Charles Leclerc, guys. Do you think he has what it takes to go all the way this season? It was a very impressive performance in Bahrain, but of course that's one race. And winning one race, the first race of the season, does not always guarantee that you're going to be a shoo-in for the championship. But do you think Charles Leclerc and Ferrari will prove to be championship contenders for the season? It certainly will be an interesting prospect, but it was a great start. And of course, he needs to keep going if he's going to challenge for a championship. The first Monegasque driver to lead a Formula One World Championship, fighting at the moment against the reigning defending world champion Max Verstappen. Courtney saying, top job blagging your way for a red flag session. Adam, sorry, my words getting mixed up there. Thank you, Courtney. I really appreciate that. It's always going to be fun talking to you guys in the chat, so keep it coming. Give me stuff to talk about if you want me to, and help me along blagging through this red flag session. And I really appreciate you guys hanging around. I imagine it might be quite tempting for some of you to sort of drop off for a little bit, go and get a drink or so, and then perhaps come back later on, or just chill, or whatever you want to do is absolutely fine. But I really appreciate you sticking around. And yeah, normally it'd be easy if I had a guest on who could just sort of have a bit of a back and forth and a mini discussion on the pod, as we can see the race director on the phone. Pretty sure that's not to the missus. I'm pretty sure it's probably talking to the stewards back at the race control, if you like. I mean, it might be to the missus, might be seeing how her day is while all that's going on. It might have a few spare minutes. It's probably very, very busy man. So it might be just seeing how she's doing, how her day's going. I don't know. You know, let me know what you think the race director is talking to, or who you think he's talking to on the phone. You've got Carlos Sainz sitting in the garage there. Yeah, it keeps showing that graphic there in fourth place, 9/10 to, or just under a second faster. Then the knockout time, pretty sure Carlos Sainz could probably put his feet up a little bit and wait for Q3 to get underway. But I have to wait and see. Lance Stroll, at the moment, a second slower than Pierre Gasly in P14, so he's going to have to go out again. And the Aston Martin struggled in qualifying in Bahrain. So it's good to see Lance Stroll at least in Q2, knocking Lewis Hamilton out, of all people, at the death in Q1. And Davina James saying, I remember an Indy 500 driver in the 1970s talking about safety of the poor track conditions. And he said, I don't know about anyone else, but it's making an old man out of me. Yeah, I can totally understand that. And, you know, it's one of those where, as I said, safety's come along so far in recent years. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm old enough to vaguely remember the day that the late, great Ayrton Senna was taken from us so young. Only 34, I believe it was, 33, 34 at the San Marino Grand Prix in 1994. It was one of my very earliest memories of Formula One, showing my age a little bit there. And I had no idea what was going on. You know, obviously I was only a baby at the time. And, you know, I don't know how I would have been able to grasp the situation if I was old enough to understand what was going on later in the day, when obviously everyone was downright distraught and upset and worried, and then obviously finding out the horrible news that we lost Ayrton. But of course, we've had days like that since. Of course, you know, Jules Bianchi very sadly passed on in 2014 at the Japanese Grand Prix. Antoine Hubert, of course, as I mentioned earlier in the F2 race, when he sadly passed after that huge crash. And of course, what happened to Romain Grosjean, and he was fortunate enough to walk away from. You know, it just shows that some of these circuits and some of these things that we can do, they might, you know, they are dangerous, but it's just great to see how far they've come in health and safety. So hopefully those sort of incidents and sad accidents are very few and far between. But of course, it's still a very dangerous sport. Also thinking back to the Macau Grand Prix a few years ago, if anyone remembers, Sophia Flörsch in turn 2 absolutely flew almost into a grandstand. And she was able to walk away. Well, say walk away. She managed to recover from her injuries, but she was able to carry on racing, and she still does now in other formulas. So it's just, you know, great to see people that, you know, when they do have those incidents, that they're not fatal, and that the worst thing is that they have, you know, a few bruises or maybe a broken bone here or there, which obviously isn't very nice for anyone that's actually had to deal with anything like that. But at least they're able to get back into the car. I mean, Juan Manuel Correa doing a good job in Formula 3. He was also involved in that crash with Hubert, was in a coma, you know, had to get the feeling back in his legs and everything else. Robert Wickens, you know, former IndyCar driver, you know, incredible recovery he's done for anyone that remembers him. And, you know, absolute superheroes, these men and women. They really are what they do, risking their lives to do something that many of us, including myself, could only have dreamed of doing. And it's just amazing how it's such a scary thing to do. But I suppose, you know, the only thing I can compare it to a degree is as a guy, whenever you go karting or driving a race car, you never think about anything like that. You never think about what the worst thing that could happen, you know, because you just don't, because otherwise it would put you off doing it. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get back to racing soon. It looks like everyone's waiting to get going, just waiting for the green flag as always. So we've got just a reminder of the order at the moment, as we've got 5 minutes left to go in Q2 at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix qualifying session. We have Charles Leclerc fastest so far for Ferrari, followed by Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen in the Red Bulls, and his teammate Carlos Sainz in P4, a tenth and a half slower than his teammates, so very tight at the top. And then we've got Fernando Alonso doing a good job for Alpine at the moment in P5, Valtteri Bottas, George Russell in the sole Mercedes in P7, Lando Norris doing a good job for McLaren so far in P8, Mick Schumacher P9, albeit Mick Schumacher will not take part anymore in qualifying, so if he does qualify in the top 10, he will start in 10th. And then there's Pierre Gasly rounding off the top 10 at the moment. And then you've got Guan Yu Zhou, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Stroll, and Ocon rounding off the remaining places, currently going out of qualifying unless they improve. Thank you for the comments, Mark, saying settling into the play-by-play role very well and handling the red flag situation shows how much he's improving in the role. And I really appreciate that. And, you know, Mark's a good friend of mine, so he doesn't have to say that. You know, he can be very upfront and honest with me, and I always appreciate constructive feedback because obviously I want to improve on what I do. But been doing this for a couple of years now, this podcasting business, for anyone that doesn't know. So it's always nice to hear positive feedback and to hear that, you know, things are improving and that I'm doing my job a bit better, which is always nice. And, yeah. Absolutely. And I hope you guys are enjoying the stream so far. I know it's been about nearly 2 hours of me talking about Formula One at the moment. And you guys, if you're watching qualifying with me or if you're watching qualifying based on the updates that I'm giving at the moment, And I really hope that you are enjoying this so far. It's been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying doing these live streams. I'm looking forward to doing more of them in the future. It certainly might be the way forward for the podcast as well. We'll have to wait and see on that one, what we do there. But yeah, as I said, hope you enjoyed it. But if you are enjoying it and you haven't already, do consider liking the video. And if you haven't as well, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out a lot. I know I keep saying it, and I know you guys are probably as bored about hearing about it, especially if you have already, as I am about saying it. But liking the video really does help us out. It gets the video out. It lets YouTube know that this is a good video, and it lets them promote the video to many other people around the world that share and love Formula 1 and motorsport like the rest of us lovely lot do, and allows the channel to grow and allows us to make great content for you guys. So it's always going to be in your best interest to like the video and support the creators, and that's the most important thing, because we do this because we love the sport and we love to share our passion for it with you guys. And it's been a fun journey so far. I must admit, I've met a lot of great, amazing people by doing this, and I certainly hope that that continues. Lots of great creators out there doing what we do. Just looking at a lap by lap comparison here of George Russell to Lewis Hamilton, as I said, it just seems that George is able to navigate his way around the circuit relatively smoothly, seems to be in a rhythm. Lewis, very uncharacteristically, seems to be quite ragged in what he's doing, fighting the car. The car just doesn't seem to be biting for him or working for him, and as you can see, bouncing around a lot as well. I'm noticing Lewis is definitely bouncing more in that car, so perhaps George has just found a much better balance than Lewis, as Lewis was saying in the interview. So, yeah, makes absolutely sense why Lewis was probably struggling. Hopefully Lewis can fix that and have a better race. Perhaps it's a car that might be suited better for race pace than it will be for qualifying. But, you know, we always love seeing Lewis fight his way through the field. He's certainly going to have to do that again tomorrow. So we'll have to wait and see what he does. But, yeah, just seeing there, just under 0.7 of a second separating the two Mercedes drivers in Q1. But that was enough for George Russell to be in the top 4 also. And it was enough, unfortunately, for Lewis to not make it through to Q2. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what George can do. Just going to take a quick drink as we're about to get underway again by the looks of it. Sorry about the radio silence there for a moment, guys. And, but yeah, looks like we're about to get underway very, very soon. Just seeing Lando Norris. Looks like, is he just stepping out of the car, actually? So, yeah, looks like we might have to wait a little while yet. It's been a long break, a long delay. And as I said, if you are new or just joining us for the first time, and welcome to the DNF1 live stream watch along of the 2022 Formula 1 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix qualifying session. As we're just watching qualifying at the moment, we're currently in a red flag situation after Mick Schumacher, the Haas driver, had a very nasty shunt in Q2. Just hearing from Gunther Steiner. I'm sure Gunther is updating the Sky F1 team on Mick Schumacher's condition, if there is any update. So, yeah, if you can hear him, obviously we're not getting the audio on that for obvious reasons. Don't want the video to be copyrighted, so I can't get the audio, I'm afraid. You're just going to have to let me know in the chat what Gunther Steiner is saying and what update is going. Hopefully it's good, but yeah, please do let me know if you can what Gunther Steiner is saying. If you're watching the Sky F1 broadcast as well and you've got the audio, please do let me know. Mark Smith asks, what is everyone's predictions for Hamilton tomorrow? I still think he'll get points, but not many. It's going to be a tough one because, as I said, you know, in practice 3 today, Lewis Hamilton wasn't quick. I know he was having some issues, probably more issues with the balance. So points aren't necessarily going to be a given. And it's very tight, the fight for points in the top 10. So, you know, Lewis could do with a bit of fortune. He could do with a safety car. But, I mean, if George Russell is able to get that car well in the top 10, there's definitely pace in that Mercedes. And I'm sure Lewis Hamilton can certainly find a way. If there's anyone that can find a way to do it, it's going to be Sir Lewis Hamilton. So, I don't think that's a bad shout from Mark. I think he'll probably get in the points. How many of those he'll get, we'll have to wait and see. And again, it also depends on, you know, things like safety cars. I think we got 2 safety cars last season. We had a few or something like that. And we had a few restarts as well through red flags. So, you know, there's going to be opportunities in this race. I'll be very surprised if we didn't have that. We had a few safety cars today in the F2 race. You know, it seems that safety cars and yellow flags breed other yellow flags and safety cars. So there's going to be opportunities for drivers to make up places on strategy, and the race could be won and lost based on strategy. So, and, you know, taking advantage of those positions as well. So we'll have to wait and see if that's going to be a factor, but I'm pretty sure Lewis will have his head very firmly screwed on tomorrow to try and take advantage of any opportunities that he can. Still watching at the moment. Gunther Steiner updating us at the moment. I'm not sure if he's updating on Mick Schumacher's condition. I can't hear that at the moment, so please do let me know if you can hear what he's saying, and let us know in the chat what exactly he is saying. I would appreciate that if you can. As I said, I would listen into that myself, but YouTube will very much, well, tell me off, I suppose, if get copyrighted audio from F1 management on the stream. Heaven forbid we do that. Courtney saying top 6 at best for Lewis Hamilton. I mean, it's certainly a reasonable objective for Lewis. I think he would have been fairly happy with a top 6 finish. I think that was probably the most the car was capable of. Just watching a replay of the Mick Schumacher crash now. So he does get out of shape actually on the corner, and then it gets on the edge of the curb, and then once that happened, the rear end just steps out, and he's a passenger at that point. And as Davina pointed out earlier, she did say the car looked like it was raised. Fortunately, looks like the side of the car takes most of the impact. It wasn't a nice incident at all, a nice shunt. But yeah, it looks like the back end is stepping out already on Mick Schumacher, and there you go. It's a small twitch of the rear end, and it puts the wheel off the road onto the slippery AstroTurf there, and the curbs lift the car up, and at that point he's a passenger. There's absolutely nothing he can do, and just seeing that, as I said, he does hit the car at the front. Fortunately, it comes at the side, but as you can see, the ricochet off the wall just sends the car flying in the other direction. That would not have been a pleasant incident for Mick Schumacher. And the medical helicopter now flying him away, which is not a fantastic sight to see, if I'm absolutely honest. If Mick Schumacher is in that level of discomfort, that would be why the helicopter's flying away. So hopefully Mick is okay. That's actually, it's not really good news to see that. So hopefully Mick Schumacher's going to be okay. And whatever Mick is dealing with, hopefully it's not a massive thing. But as I said, guys, if you are getting updates on Mick Schumacher's condition or know what is going on with him that I haven't been able to hear, please do let me know in the chat. I would appreciate that. But of course, guys, if we get an update on that and you guys are watching qualifying through me, then I will let you know as soon as I hear anything on the subject. So, you know, in the meantime, whilst we're waiting for qualifying to get back underway, which of course, once we hear update on that, I'm sure I'll be able to let you know. But let me know your thoughts on the Bahrain Grand Prix. What did you make of it? Were you impressed by Ferrari's performance at the Bahrain Grand Prix? Were you impressed by Charles Leclerc? What did you make of Red Bull's issues? Were you surprised about the reliability issues that hit Red Bull? And do you think that could potentially be a problem for them throughout the season? Who were your stars in Bahrain? I know a few in particular: Valtteri Bottas, Kevin Magnussen, of course, doing a great job. And also, what do you think about McLaren? Do you think McLaren may have a hard time getting back to the front of the field? You know, this was a team like Ferrari that we hoped and expect would make a leap forward, perhaps not on the level that Ferrari were going to make, but you know, it won nonetheless. And unfortunately for them, they've gotten backwards in quite some emphatic fashion. So hopefully for their sake, that will be temporary, but let me know your thoughts on that one. See Mark Smith in the comments once again saying, to be fair, even for Red Bull, they can use these sessions to tune up, to catch up those extra attempts against Ferrari. Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen where Ferrari's true performance is right now, because of course a lot of people think that they are the best at the moment, and based on what we saw in Bahrain, that did look to be the case. I'd imagine the deficit to Red Bull is very, very close. I've been hearing whispers and, news reports saying that Ferrari have a bit more performance in their engine to unleash. But of course, they're worried about reliability at this point, so they're trying to ease themselves into it as best as they can, whilst not sacrificing on too much performance if they can afford it, which is always encouraging. And, it's always important to note that the development war between these teams is going to be really, really rapid this year. There won't be any saving resources for a brand new car and brand new regs like we saw last season. So we're expecting everybody to really be on it this year, as it was in 2009 when we saw the development race in that set of regulations, which was probably the closest thing to what we're seeing today. So, we could end up with a season where, we got these teams at the front now, but then in 6 months' time, the order could be flipped altogether, with the ATR regs and everything else. I suppose, as I said before, what goes well for Ferrari is the fact that they have more development time in the first half of the season than the likes of Red Bull, Mercedes, which will allow them more opportunity to pull away from those teams before eventually those are reset and those teams have the chance to catch back up again. Mark saying, as for Bahrain, the last thing I want to see on a regular basis is a 1-2 Ferrari finish. Well, I'm not going to agree with you on that one. Adam will be unbearable for the podcast and life in general. Well, I mean, he's not wrong. But, I think it'd be nice for me to be a bit happy about Formula 1 again. Although saying that, I love the sport, but I always want to see Ferrari do really, really well. So I think we can afford Ferrari a little bit of success. It's been a while. It's been nearly 15 years since our last Drivers' Champion, Kimi Räikkönen. That's how long ago it's been. And of course, the last Constructors' Championship 14 years ago. Funny enough, when Lewis Hamilton won his first World Championship, seems like such a long time ago, from the Brazilian Grand Prix, the Isaac Glock moment. Courtney Pine saying the rate of development is going to be something else this year. Absolutely agree. As I was saying already, development rate is going to be absolutely huge this season. Everybody's going to be really on it. Of course, we're all in a cost cap era now, so no one's going to have a standout advantage on anybody else in terms of resources. In theory, probably will be some. Some teams might not still be able to spend up to the $140 million a year that the budget cap is set at the moment, plus a little bit extra to compensate for the sprint races that we will be getting at, I believe, Imola, Austria, and the Belgian Grand Prix later in the year. So we'll be going there soon. And of course, in a couple of weeks' time, we'll be going back to Melbourne. Brand new layout for the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne. So that'll be fun to look at. A bit more high speed than what we're used to. Hopefully more overtaking opportunities. Another street circuit, although not exactly the conventional street circuit, but one nonetheless. Still a little bit of a wait by the looks of it before qualifying gets underway. We haven't had a notification from race control to tell us when qualifying is getting back underway. So, of course, if you want, this might be a good idea, as I said, to, grab yourself a drink or something, put the kettle on and come back to join us for the rest of qualifying. Of course, if you want to stay on the stream, that's absolutely fine. Absolutely love you for it. But yeah, let me know how you're doing, guys. Let me know where you're watching qualifying from. Are you enjoying it? Of course, we're in a bit of a lull at the moment because of what's going on, but of course, it takes as long as it needs to take. These things can happen in F1, but yeah, let me know where you're watching qualifying from. And yeah, how are your Saturday afternoons going? Did you get up too much in the morning? I'm really, really scratching for topics at the moment. Also. So yeah, hit me with whatever F1 related questions you want. If you want to ask me anything I might know about F1 or anything you want to know about me as an F1 fan, anything in particular that you can think of, then let me know in the chat and I'll be happy to answer any of those questions, to divulge, I suppose, a little bit about myself as an F1 fan on here. Other than the fact that those of you that have been watching this stream for a while now will know that I'm a huge Ferrari fan. Davina said, I'm going to make some toast. Interesting. See, what do you like to put on your toast, Davina? Do you just have butter on it, or do you like to put something like jam or marmalade or Marmite, perhaps? And on that note, and keep that coming in, of course. I am interested in that. And let me know, everyone else, what you guys are up to right now. Race control with a notification. Session will resume at 21:40 local time. That is 5 minutes from now. So we will go back to racing in 5 minutes time for qualifying to restart. So that is some good news. So we've not long to wait now, just a few minutes to go. Well, Mark, I prefer, in terms of your comment, I prefer you to ask me about F1 related questions. So anything you want to know about me, I'd prefer you to relate to F1, not necessarily personal stuff. I know you and I know each other really well, so that's absolutely fine. But yeah, if you've got any F1 related questions you want to know about me as an F1 fan, or, you know, racing experiences or stuff like that, please do let me know. Track surface slippery in track sector 7 or turn 7, I suppose. That's what they're referring to, and that will be the area on the exit where Mick Schumacher had his accident. So again, that could prove to be a factor in qualifying. You know, drivers going a bit slower or having less grip on the exit, being a bit careful to not have a crash, could cost them valuable time on a circuit where flow and momentum is absolutely critical. You need to make sure you've got that consistent and you've got that going. You can't afford to lose time. Mark saying Nutella is the best thing to put on toast, right? To Courtney. Mick Schumacher taken to hospital as a precaution. Well, that sounds good. If it is a precaution, then that is really, really good news. And of course, it is a precaution. Usually these cars, they're fitted with sensors that when you have a crash at such a high speed and high force, the driver's always taken to hospital as a precaution. I remember last season, if we all remember, that huge crash that Max Verstappen had at Silverstone when he and Lewis Hamilton collided at Copse Corner. Or Stowe Corner, yeah, Copse Corner, I should say, sorry. In Silverstone last year, that 52G impact, and, you know, he was taken to the hospital in the same manner as a precaution. And Mick Schumacher, hopefully Mick's going to be okay, and that it's just precautionary, which is great news. I mean, I'd be surprised if he's racing tomorrow, but, you know, I wouldn't rule it out either, which would be great to see, but hopefully he's okay. That's the most important thing. Yeah, on the Nutella front, I like Nutella on toast. It's actually quite nice. I mean, I'm a bit old-fashioned. I usually prefer just a bit of butter and jam on my toast. But no, Nutella's quite nice. I'm sure there's an innuendo in there somewhere, if I know Mark. So I'm not going to take that too seriously. A serious question. What is my favourite race of all time? Good question. I would probably say... There's two that come to mind. There's the Japanese Grand Prix in 2005, where Kimi Raikkonen came all the way from back, I think 17th, 18th on the grid, and then passed Giancarlo Fisichella around the outside of Turn 1 at Japan to win the Grand Prix. It was an incredible Grand Prix. And then there's got to be 2010. Was it 2010, the Canadian Grand Prix? Jenson Button winning from the back of the grid, passing Seb Vettel on the final lap at Canada. That's probably up there as well. Those are probably the two that I can think of at the top of my head that sort of stick out to me. Canada 2011. Thank you, Luke, for appreciate that one. Yeah, 2011 Canadian Grand Prix, definitely up there. 2005 Japanese Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen winning that day. That was definitely up there as well. Let me know, guys, what are your... You know, it's a good question, actually. What are your favourite races, guys? If you could chuck a few... famous races in your memory that you enjoyed, let me know in the chat as well, as we're about to get underway at the same time. Just a minute to go before race control lets the cars go out again. So thank you so much, everyone, for bearing with us on this one. I hope I've been able to keep this one going as well as I can on the live stream for you guys, but thank you so much for sticking with me. And of course, thank you to those of you that are joining us. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome along to the DNF1 live stream qualifying session here at the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. We are about to get back underway after the long red flag period after a huge crash of Mick Schumacher. And of course, when we hear updates on Mick, we will let you know as soon as possible. We've got 5 minutes left to go, 4 minutes 58 seconds to be exact. Charles Leclerc, fastest man at the moment, separating the 2 Red Bulls and Carlos Sainz, just a 10th.5 between the top 4 leading teams. Kevin Magnussen now coming to the pit lane exit as we're about to get going underway. Who is going through to qualifying 3? One man who will not be going through to the final session in qualifying is Lewis Hamilton, who amazingly, shockingly went out in Q1. And I'm sure you can sense the enthusiasm in my voice as we're about to get underway. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. We've had a long break for all the right reasons, of course, to make sure everything is safe and underway. Hopefully we have no more incidents like the one we saw with Mick Schumacher and, of course, Nicholas Latifi as well. As we can see, Max Verstappen getting those tyres warmed up. And the track has obviously cooled down, so the track could be at a much faster level of performance as the track has cooled down, as we're running a lot later than we expected to tonight. So it is important, probably. I'd be very surprised if anybody stayed in the garage, as we've got Magnussen, both the Ferraris also out as well. So no one's really going to be safe right now. I think, you know, if before the crash, I think the top four were well safe, but I think owing to track evolution, we may not, no one might be safe. As it's now green flag, we are finally back racing again, qualifying back underway after the lengthy today. Thank you so much for sticking around. And we are now back as qualifying is back underway. 5 minutes left to go. As you can see the timer at the bottom of your screen ticking away. Who is going through to Q2? We'll just have to wait and see. But right now, the Ferraris and the Red Bulls looking very comfortable at the moment. But it could be anybody's game right now. Luke saying Abu Dhabi 2021 is my favourite. I'm not even going to entertain that because I know he's on the wind-up. Mark Smith saying one that stands out weirdly is 2000 Monaco. David Coulthard winning that. That was actually a very enjoyable race. I remember that one very, very well. And that was a good day for DC. Probably one of his best drives winning in Monaco. You know, anyone winning a Monaco Grand Prix is always an achievement. I remember Olivier Panis winning in 96 in the Ligier. Many, many years ago. Again, showing my age there. A lot of you probably won't remember the Ligier team in the 90s. And just looking through the order. Yes. Oh my God. Yep. Okay. On that one. Yeah, it's probably an inside joke on the Nutella thing. Anyway, look, back to qualifying now. We've been talking enough about Nutella and toast and stuff like that. Thank you, though, for that in the meantime. We're with Kevin Magnussen now. Probably a lot on his mind. Probably thinking about his teammate. Hopefully it's good news and that Mick's okay. As I said, we will update you if we hear an update on that one. But of course, if you guys hear an update, please do let me know in the chat. I'd appreciate that. As Kevin Magnussen now currently sitting in P13. So he has work to do if he is going to get that Haas into Q3 for the second race in a row since his return now. Coming across the final straight at over 300 kilometers an hour on a street circuit. That is some sentence right there. Now coming into turn 1, turn 2, looking very tidy. It's going to be interesting to see how he gets on when he gets to turn 7, if of course he's going to be affected by all of that powder and dust over there to cover up this oil spillage left behind his teammate's stricken car. Seems that Haas is a little bit of a handful at the moment as we're on board with K-Mag. Let's see how he gets on as he now approaches turn 7. Seems to be relatively fine. No problems there at all. And he's 0.08 of a second faster than Pierre Gasly, who is currently at risk at the moment in P10. Everybody out on track. Of course, the only one who isn't is Mick Schumacher. Obviously, no longer competing in qualifying, but may still qualify for Q3 as he currently sits in P9, but he will no longer partake in qualifying. Hopefully, if he's okay, we might see him in the race tomorrow. You never know. Seen stranger things happen, but we'll have to wait and see as he's being checked as a precaution. Now, as you see, Lando Norris looks like he's on a lap and he's really going for it in the McLaren there, passing the Alpine at high speed. On board with Lando Norris, a nice little cockpit cam. Haven't seen too much of that in the session. We've got 2 minutes left to go. Let's see how K-Mag gets on right now. Let's see Norris as well, how he's getting currently P8 at the moment. So he's in Q3 as it stands, but of course the order was going to change very, very quickly. Norris passing both of the Ferraris there. Only 0.4 of a second off Charles Leclerc. So he's really going for it. And as you can see, really going for it. And I'm sort of repeating myself there. Lando Norris really throwing caution to the wind. He's not holding back. And it's good to see McLaren looking like they've found some pace, or at least in Norris's hands they have, as he comes through the final corner. Be interesting to see the level of improvement. How significant will track evolution be as we come across the line now? What's Norris's time going to be? 0.7 off. He remains P8, but it is an improvement. Will that get him through? It's the last time he can do, so we'll have to wait and see. But that might be good enough to get him through. Good lap from Norris. 0.7 off Charles Leclerc. George Russell, currently P7. 4.5 off Leclerc after the 2 sectors. Has not improved in sectors 1 and 2. He's got a Red Bull right ahead of him on the racing line there. Bit dangerous there from, I believe that was Sergio Perez at George Russell. Overtook Davina, mentioning the danger on that circuit there. That's the danger right there if you're not careful. But George Russell goes across the line. What's the time going to be for Russell? He does not improve. He stays only 7th now. So Lance Stroll, currently 14th, next across the line. What can he do in the Aston Martin? Can he improve? Can he get into the top 10? He cannot. He does not improve. So Lance Stroll will not go through to Q3. He will be 14th unless Esteban Ocon can improve, although Ocon has a lot of time to find. We're on board with Fernando Alonso, currently in P5 at the moment. Personal best in Sector 1. Not an improvement in Sector 2. Comes to the final corner as the front end just doesn't bite into the corner. He's got K-Mag and Bottas behind him in the pink Alpine. What is Alonso going to do? Can he get through into Q3? Alonso improves 4 tenths off the Ferrari, so doing a good lap there. Magnussen up into P7, a big improvement from him. Bottas across the line. Bottas improves but stays 6th. So Magnussen looks like he might have got himself into Q3. Esteban Ocon on the hunt right now. Pierre Gasly also on there. Ricciardo on a lap. Carlos Sainz goes fastest of 128.6. That's a huge time from Sainz. So there is improvement on this track. Will Carlos Sainz be in the hunt for pole position? Charles Leclerc improves, but only less than a tenth off of his teammate. Ocon into the top 10. Both Alpines in the top 10 once again. Gasly up into P7. George Russell's on the bubble. Is he going out of qualifying? Ricciardo up to 12th, just behind his teammate. Can Guan Yu Zhou knock Russell out of qualifying? No, he can't. So he's 13th. I think that is going to be it for qualifying. So George Russell just about survives and is through to Q3. Both McLarens are out. Guan Yu Zhou out of qualifying. Mick Schumacher, who was already not going to take any further part, is down to 14th. Lance Stroll in 15th. So great job from Valtteri Bottas, Kevin Magnussen, Gasly, and the 2 Alpines, and also George Russell as well in the Mercedes on a day where Mercedes really are up against it. So George Russell's done very well to get into Q3. Lando Norris, very disappointed. P11 would not necessarily be the worst thing in previous years when you'd have a fresh choice of tyre to choose. But this year, he will not get that luxury. So it's just a genuine P11. So a great job from George Russell on the medium tyres, no less, as well, that time that he set. He didn't improve on his final run, but he managed to get through nonetheless. As I said, there doesn't seem to be too much of a delta between the soft and the medium, although the soft is slightly faster. Perhaps the medium's giving Mercedes a bit more performance over the lap because they're struggling to keep the soft tyres in the window. But that is the end of Q2. And we're now going to be going to Q3. And if you're new to qualifying and have never seen a Q3 session before, same format as Q2 and Q1 in terms of what needs to be achieved. 12 minutes of running this time. It's a pole position shootout. The top 10 in Q2 will now try and compete for pole position. So quite an interesting end to that session. We saw a few changes in places. Unfortunately, both McLarens out. Lando Norris 11th, Ricciardo P12, but at least they're both through to Q2. So there is some improvement there for McLaren, so they will take that on board. And let us know what you think, guys. And who do you think is going to get on pole position now as we've got the final 10 runners? Carlos Sainz doing that late run for Ferrari, getting his eye in before the final session, improving, getting it fastest of all, a tenth faster than Charles Leclerc. And, we said before that, Carlos Sainz, looking at his performance in Bahrain, he wasn't overly happy with his performance. He was a bit concerned about that. And looks like he's answered in the right way possible. Of course, we've still got one more qualifying session to go, but Carlos Sainz looking pretty handy at the moment. Looks like he's found that little bit of something extra. Has Charles Leclerc got anything to respond to that? Do the Red Bulls have anything to respond to what Ferrari are doing at the moment? We'll have to wait and see as we're not long away now from Q3. But let me know, guys, who you think is going to be on pole position for the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. We've not got long to go before Q3. So let me know your predictions, guys. So I've been on stream now for just over 2 hours. It's a bit longer than I would have anticipated. And Q3 will start a little bit sooner than would have anticipated before. It's going to be 3 minutes from now, so not long to wait. So yeah, just let me know. Seeing if you guys are still there in the chat. Let me know your predictions for qualifying 3. Who do you think is going to be on pole position? for the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. As I said, if you are new to the channel and this is the first time that you've checked us out, thank you so much for joining us and inviting us into your lives via YouTube. And hopefully you're enjoying the stream so far. And if you are, once again, I'm going to do a Bernie Sanders and ask for your support. And ask for you to like the video. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps us out if you like the video, gets our video out to loads of other people on YouTube that won't have heard of us, or, you know, might be F1 fans and want to come and join the DNF1 family and join all you lovely lot on future streams as well. I'd love to see that. Mark saying, Adam, I hope you've got a second bottle. That was my second bottle. So, yeah, very thirsty work, this live stream commentary stuff. I could have done with a third one, but I didn't expect it to last this long. I thought 2 bottles might get me through. And my mouth was mega dry, only having 1 bottle after Bahrain. So I thought 2 might do it, but clearly I need to take a whole pack up and just grab one from underneath the table every 5 minutes just to make sure I'm hydrated. Stay hydrated, guys. That's the most important thing. Davina saying, K-Mag, first time here, and he has been awesome. Yeah, you know, Kevin Magnussen has been quite the revelation since he's come back. Did an incredible job in Bahrain. I'm loving seeing K-Mag back. I think F1 missed him. And you know what? He's definitely a guy that's won me over very, very quickly. So we'll have to wait and see how he gets on. But he's done a great job. Must be said, K-Mag has done an incredible job. Hopefully Mick, if he's feeling better, can get up to that level as well. And, you know, it'd be a good barometer for Mick Schumacher as well to try and measure his performance and how far he's come along. Because last year he absolutely destroyed Nikita Mazepin. But I think we can all agree and say that Nikita Mazepin was not exactly at the level needed to be competitive in Formula 1. So let's wait and see what he can do. Mark Smith saying, I think Leclerc will edge it. Leclerc's a good shout. Carlos Sainz, as I said, put himself in the mix. Interesting to see what Max Verstappen and Red Bull can do. And of course, let's not rule out Sergio Perez. Perez has been lightning fast this weekend round the Saudi circuit. And Perez drove very, very well. In Bahrain, was very unlucky not to get that podium. I think he very much deserved it with that performance. Hopefully we see more of that, because I think we can all agree that this is a big year for Perez, and if he puts in more performances like he's doing right now on a regular basis, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Red Bull will keep him on. And that's kind of, and you know, in a way you could argue that driving for your F1 future year on year is not exactly a good way to handle pressure, or a good way to get the best out of your driver. Just ask Valtteri Bottas. But of course, you know, Red Bull need to find a suitable number 2 and also a driver that can take the reins if Verstappen, for whatever reason, decides not to stay on. Although, given his new contract, I don't think that's going to be an issue they have to worry about. Mark saying, never make a Bernie Sanders reference against... I'm sorry, Mark, I had to. It was there, staring me right in the face. I had to do it. But don't worry, I'm not going to make too many references to US politicians, because I know as much about them as I know about my own country's politicians, and that's saying something. Anyway, we're about to get started for Q3. The Ferraris leading the garage there. We've got, is it Carlos Sainz, I believe that is, or it might be, no, it's actually, sorry, that's Charles Leclerc doing a crofty there, getting it completely wrong. Charles Leclerc, first man out of the garage, followed by Max Verstappen. These two had a nice little ding-dong battle in Bahrain. We might get to see a bit more of that this season. I certainly hope we do. It was very, very fun to watch between the two. Will it be as respectful as it was in Bahrain over the course of the year? If we, well, anything like last year's to go by, I'd be very surprised if it was. A few elbows getting out. And these two have gone wheel to wheel before in previous years and got the shoulders out. So there's absolutely no reason why that won't happen again. Question from Davina. Will the Xbox F1 2022 game come with a terrorism mode for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix? Oh, that's a bit of an interesting comment. I'm going to say no. And if you want to say that it's not realistic, that's up to you. Yeah, I'm going to say no on that one. I'm afraid, Davina. So take that as you will. Anyway, we're back to qualifying. We've got Charles Leclerc on board now. It looks like... has Max Verstappen overtaken him on the road? Max does have a habit sometimes of trying to fight for position. Nothing wrong with that. We used to see that a lot. I remember Fernando Alonso and Michael Schumacher battling a lot with each other at the French Grand Prix back in 2006. They were fighting each other in qualifying just to get ahead of the other one, just to get a good run at qualifying. It was actually more fun than some of the races were, to be fair. But great era of racing between the all-time greats, Fernando Alonso and Michael Schumacher. As now we're watching a Red Bull come down the final straight. I believe that's Max Verstappen, so he did get ahead of Leclerc on his outlap. Now Max is going to be the first driver to set a flying lap. What can Max Verstappen do? Or looks like he's actually, no, he's on another warm-up lap actually, so he's going quite slowly. Is Charles Leclerc also? Charles Leclerc looks like he's going for it, so he's going to overtake Max. So the Ferrari clearly having a more comfortable time warming up its tyres than the Red Bull is at the moment. Let's see what Charles Leclerc can do. Mark saying, follow-up question, what was your first F1 game? Mine was F1 2000 by Esports. I think mine was F1 World Grand Prix on the Nintendo 64. What a game that was, the 1997 World Championship. Brilliant, brilliant. Davina saying it was a joke. Yeah, I'm sorry, Davina. I'm sure it's a joke. My mind is completely elsewhere at the moment, but yeah, you never know on some of these streams, some of the questions you get on there. Anyway, but yeah, no, very good one. Charles Leclerc now coming through, first sector, green first sector. Carlos Sainz with a purple sector 1. The Ferraris have been mighty in the opening sector, and it looks like Carlos Sainz is really on it again. It'll be interesting to see how they get on in the middle sector, where Charles Leclerc seems to come to his own as he's gone purple in the middle sector, although he is the only man to set it. And that Ferrari's really flying. Wow. That is a sight to see. The Ferrari really dancing through there. Carlos Sainz almost identical times for the two Ferraris after the first two sectors. I think Sainz is up on Leclerc by like a few thousandths of a second as Leclerc comes through the final corner, really going for it. Let's see what this time is going to be. What is Leclerc's time going to be? He lays down his first marker, 128.4. Wow. 2 tenths faster than what Sainz managed in Q2. How will Carlos Sainz respond to his teammate? 128.402. That's fastest of all. Provisional pole for Carlos Sainz. The Ferraris are really on it now. Esteban Ocon, 129.0, third fastest at the moment. Gasly, fourth. Kevin Magnussen with a 129.5, further down. Sergio Perez now on track. Green in sector 1. Verstappen doing another cool down lap. So it looks like Max is going to be finally getting going, so we'll have to wait and see what he can do. What can Perez do in the middle sector? How far away is he from the Ferraris? He's only half a tenth. Perez is in there. It's game on. And Perez almost loses the back end. This is really getting fun now, guys. They're really going for it. The Red Bull drivers and the Ferraris really leaving nothing on the table now. And 334 kilometers an hour for the Red Bull. That Honda engine, or Red Bull powertrain, if you like, is really giving it some. As Perez comes down the final straight, what is the time going to be? Can he beat the Ferraris? No, he cannot. 1 minute 28.5. He's a tenth and a half down on Sainz. Verstappen was 4 tenths down on the Ferraris in sector 1. Right now, let's see what he can do in sector 2. The Red Bulls have been mighty in the middle sector, especially Max Verstappen. What can Max do to respond? He's still 4 tenths down, so he matched the Ferraris in the middle sector. So this is by far from Max's best work on this lap. So he looks like he might have to go again, but can he make up the difference in the final sector? 4.5 tenths down on Carlos Sainz at the moment. 332 Ks down the speed trap, faster than anything else we've seen so far. That Honda power unit certainly doing some at the moment. Let's see what Verstappen can do. Where will his time be? Only 6th. That is something. But then it was a pretty poor middle sector for Verstappen. He certainly was off the Ferraris in sector 1 and 2. So Max not hooking it up on this time round, but so far, advantage Ferrari, and specifically Carlos Sainz, well, 128.402, fastest of all, separated by half a tenth faster than his teammate. Perez a further tenth back in third. Ocon and Alonso, 4th and 5th at the moment. Verstappen 6th, saying on the radio, I don't know what he's saying, but I'm pretty certain he wasn't happy about that lap. Pierre Gasly, P7 at the moment for AlphaTauri, doing a good job. Bottas in P8. Let's see what happened to Max. Did he make a mistake at turn 1? Went in there. Turn 1 was pretty clean. Turn 2 was a bit nervy on the throttle. Lost the back end a little bit on exit. Seeing what happened on the replay. Yeah, the back end gets out a little bit on the exit. Did he tag the wall with the rear end of the car? No, it's absolutely fine. So, see what else on the lap. The Sergio Perez, as I was saying, yeah, Sergio Perez, the left and right, really going for it. That was a great lap from Sergio Perez, leaving absolutely nothing on the table. Turn 7, right in the curbs there, kicking up a load of dust. I'm I'm guessing that's the paintwork from the curb. I'm hoping that's not from the back of Perez's car, but I digress. Anyway, here's George Russell out for Mercedes. Only Mercedes in Q3 after his teammate Lewis Hamilton shockingly went out in Q1. 2 temps down on Carlos Sainz in Sector 1, so a decent first sector. What can Russell do in the middle sector? Mercedes tend to lose a lot of time in the middle sector to the Ferraris and the Red Bulls, so Russell needs to have a good lap here. Mr. Saturday back in the car in a Mercedes now, so you're hoping he's going to have a few more happy Saturdays than before. Still only just under 3 temps off the Ferrari, so at the moment he's ahead of the 2 Red Bulls. This could be a very good time for George Russell. Where will he put his car at the moment? He's behind the 2 Ferraris and Sergio Perez at the moment, coming into the final corner. Shockingly, though, 12 kilometers an hour slower through the speed trap than Sergio Perez. That's a huge amount of speed difference between the 2 cars. What's Russell's time going to be across the line? Where's this going to put him? P5. Not a bad effort from George Russell at the moment. P5. I think Mercedes will be very happy with that under the circumstances. Valtteri Bottas now on board with him. Currently 9th fastest overall, half a second down on Carlos Sainz after the first 2 sectors. Let's see what Bottas can do. Can Bottas get into P5? My pick for the top 5. What can he do? He's got a Ferrari, got both Ferraris in the way there, but they're well out of the way before he comes into the final corner there. Nice entry from Valtteri Bottas. Gets on the power, pedal to the metal, all the way down, hugging the left-hand side of the track like his favourite grandma, and he goes 6th fastest behind George Russell and Esteban Ocon, and ahead of Fernando Alonso. So a decent effort from Bottas, and slowing right down to get out of the way of the Ferraris, who look like they've gone again. Have they gone for another lap, or have they gone out early? We'll have to wait and see what has happened there. The Ferraris might have come in and put a new set of tyres on. I'm not sure yet, but it's just a few minutes to go now. We've got Max Verstappen putting on a fresh set of tyres. So yeah, the Ferraris might already have gone in and put on a new set of tyres. But guys, let me know your thoughts so far. The Ferrari's looking very handy. Perez definitely in the hunt, which shows that Max Verstappen is definitely in with a chance of getting on pole position, or at least somewhere in that ballpark. But very tight right now. Who do you think is going to be on pole position? Max well down at the moment, currently in 8th at the moment. So certainly work to do for the world champion. Was not his finest effort. Going to need to see something very special from him if he's going to put that car on pole. But here we are with Charles Leclerc, the pole sitter in Bahrain, the race winner in Bahrain. 0.5 of a second behind his teammate Carlos Sainz, who is going for his first, is it first pole position this season? Yeah, I think it might be, no, actually, yeah. Trying to think, first pole of his career. Trying to think back to Russia last season. I can't remember if it was Lando Norris that was on pole. I think Sainz led the race. I think he might have been P2 actually, or something like that. Let me know in the chat which way around it was. But at the moment, Carlos Sainz looking good. Looks like he might get on pole position. He's turned it up and found that speed just when he needed to most. But he's got one more run. Can he consolidate that and get on pole position for tomorrow's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and put himself in a great position to get his first career win in Formula 1 and cement Ferrari's performance? But we're here with Charles Leclerc, the championship leader, race winner in Bahrain. What can Charles Leclerc do? Can he get back-to-back pole positions? As Carlos Sainz is behind him on the circuit, we'll have to wait and see. But here we go. Final lap for Charles Leclerc. What is he going to do? He's got to put it all on the line, get the lap that he needs to get, just like he did in Bahrain, to get on pole position with his teammate right behind him. And of course, the 2 Red Bulls breathing down their neck. Let's see what they can do. What's Leclerc's first sector going to be? He's been mighty in first sector, although Sainz has had him in the first sector before on this track. Purple sector 1 for Leclerc, 1/10.5 faster in sector 1. A mighty first sector from Leclerc. Sainz 1/10 down. So Charles Leclerc at the moment, purple in sector 1. What can he do in sector 2? He was a little bit wobbly through turn 4 there. Very handy through turn 7 now, the part of the track where Ferrari tends to lose a little bit to the likes of Red Bulls, but seem to consolidate that advantage. What's Leclerc going to be like in the middle sector? This one needs to be perfect. He's found more time in the middle sectors. Purple sector 2. He's now 3 tenths ahead of Sainz in sector 2. Sainz matches his middle sector. He's still slow, so he's 400s down. So it's Leclerc at the moment by 3 tenths of a second. Can Charles Leclerc hold on to this one? This has been a mega lap from Charles Leclerc. Can he get it on provisional pole position? What can Sainz do in the final sector now? as Leclerc comes across the line. What's the time going to be? A 1 minute 28.2 for Leclerc. He's on provisional pole. What can Sainz do? Sainz cannot improve. So Sainz now in P2. We've got Perez and Verstappen to come. What is Perez doing? What is Perez doing on his timesheets? He's purple in the middle sector. Perez is ahead of Leclerc. Perez could go on pole position here. Verstappen is nowhere at the moment. Is this going to be pole for Sergio Perez now as he comes across the line? What is the time going to be for Perez? And Perez is on pole. Perez is on pole position. Unbelievable. Sergio Perez for Red Bull on pole. What is Max Verstappen going to do? Can he join his teammate on the front row? Can he? No. He is fourth. So it is Sergio Perez on the pole position. What a lap. Vamos, Checo. Unbelievable. I said Perez had improved his performance. I said Perez had come to play and he was up there for Red Bull. And what a lap. He has delivered big time for the team. It's not the car that Red Bull thought was going to be on pole position today. I don't think many of us thought he was going to be on pole. But Sergio Perez has delivered the lap of his life and he's on pole position. What a lap from Sergio Perez. Brilliant stuff to see. Charles Leclerc, an incredible lap from him, but he was off in the final sector. And you could argue that final sector possibly cost him pole position, but he will be on the front row in P2. Carlos Sainz, brilliant most of the day, but didn't deliver on his final run, P3. Max Verstappen, P4. Ocon, P5. Russell doing a good job for Mercedes in P6. Alonso, P7. Bottas, P8 once again for Alfa Romeo. Gasly, 9th. And Kevin Magnussen in 10th for Haas. Another Q3 appearance for Haas, Kevin Magnussen. What a qualifying session. Had a lot in there, guys, and certainly was worth the wait and the delays. First ever pole position for Checo. Just seeing a replay of Pierre Gasly. What's going on here? Did Pierre Gasly have a bit of a problem? Coming in, scrapes the wall with his rear left tyre. Ruined his lap a little bit there. In the same spot, really, where Mick Schumacher had his accident. So, fortunately, he's okay. Looks like he's going to be fine. Yeah. What a lap. George Russell, what did he do on his lap? Also scraping the wall a little bit in the middle sector, and that ruined his final run. But he'll be on the third row of the grid in P6, so he'll be relatively happy. Esteban Ocon, great performance from him in the Alpine in P5. So well done to Esteban Ocon. Great stuff to see. And, you can see really gets out of shape there, Esteban Ocon. In the same place where Schumacher had his crash, only this time Ocon just about saving it. That would have been a scary one. But yeah, what a qualifying session, guys. Sergio Perez, first pole position of his career, I believe. And yeah, great stuff to see. The two Ferraris just behind him in second place. So it looks like the Red Bulls are there to play. And the straight line speed that these Red Bulls have on this circuit is going to make them formidable to beat. Because right now they seem to be in a class of their own in terms of straight line speed. But there we go. So there's the headline, guys. If you have just joined us, Sergio Perez, his first pole position of his career for Red Bull, just ahead of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari and Carlos Sainz. Max Verstappen, the world champion, could only manage fourth place. Just didn't seem to have the pace in Q3. And another big headline, Lewis Hamilton out in Q1 as well. Haven't heard an update from Mick Schumacher. Hopefully he's going to be okay after that big crash of his, but apparently it's precautionary. And yeah, I think there's not much more I can say on this one, guys. I think I've pretty much covered it. I hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you so much for joining me on this live stream watch along for 2.5 hours now, qualifying. Obviously, the lengthy delays that we had. And I hope you enjoyed qualifying. As I said, if you are new to the channel, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Really helps us out a lot. And I really appreciate your support. And thank you for hanging out with me and joining me for this watch along and staying with me whilst the delays were going on. It's been a lot of fun and really enjoyed that qualifying session. And let's see who's going to win the Grand Prix this weekend. So until then, guys, take care, stay safe,